Hey there, Juniper Smith. This is Eneash.
Hey, Eneash, how's it going? This is Steven.
Steven, not everyone knows who Juniper Smith is because a lot of people did not read Worth the Candle, apparently, before reading this.
Whoa.
Who is Juniper Smith? And yeah, I know, the crazy bad decision-making on their part, having not read Worth the Candle yet. Who is Juniper Smith, and why are you him?
He's the protagonist of the great web serial Alexander Wales, Worth the Candle. If you like this kind of format, you might dig that book because we did, I don't know, 150, 200 hours worth of content talking about that book.
Yeah.
So if you got a year to kill and want to listen to a lot of shit, we've got you covered. And he also has a lot of he suffers from sexual hangups where they're just trying to figure out the lines.
Yes.
So
yeah.
That came to mind because I was listening to the audiobook driving to and from Fort Collins yesterday, or Sunday.
Oh, the audiobook of Worth the Candle?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he's got a fair bit of sexual hangups. I think he mostly gets over them in time. Well, this isn't Not Everything is a Clue. This is It Makes Sense If You Understand Decision Theory. What is It Makes Sense If You Understand Decision Theory?
This is the podcast where you and I talk about Kelsey Piper and Eliezer Yudkowsky's Glowfic Project Lawful.
They are writing this thing, we are reading this thing, and then talking about this thing, and recording the talking about this thing, and publishing it so that you can be listening to us talking about the reading of this thing. You
put.
can give... Thank you. You can give us money to somewhere along that chain by going to Patreon, which is linked in the show notes. We do kick back 15% to Kelsey and Eliezer. And actually, I'm going to have to get on that in a couple days because, not a couple days, but a couple weeks, because it is the first half of the year. It's just about over here.
Oh, yeah. Happy mid-year.
Huzzah!
You know, I never complain about the long days because I miss the sun, in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I'm looking forward to sunrise not being at 5:30.
Don't you have, blackout curtains?
I do, but they let in slivers of light.
Shall we get into the listener feedback?
Well, really quick, actually, first, I knew there's something I wanted to ask about. You were at Vibe Camp last week, which is why this is a week delayed.
It is, and I was, yes.
What is Vibe Camp, Eneash? I bumped into somebody at the last meetup who told me about it, and I want to see how your pitch to it compares to his.
So, what is Vibe Camp? First, to promote another podcast that I am on, at The Mind Killer, we recorded a special episode live at Vibe Camp where we basically just talked to Vibe Camp people about their vibe. And during that, we discussed what is Vibe Camp, what is post-rationality, and what is Teapot. So you can get more detailed answers there, and I will link to that. But since you are asking right now and you want to know, in short, there's a whole bunch of rationalists and post-rationalists who all follow each other on Twitter, basically, and they call it kind of like their little area of Twitter. Literally, this part of Twitter is what Teapot stands for. Last year, Brooke, one of these Teapotters, said, you know what, we should all meet up, and I am awesome and agenty, and I'm going to make this happen. And so she did, and they all met at a campground in Austin, and it was reportedly the most awesome thing ever. And so they did it again this year at a much better location in, probably a much better location, more practical at any rate, in Maryland. And that's where I went. It's sort of like a campground with a number of cabins, areas to put up tents, a barn for raves, all kinds of cool shit, and a bunch of rationalists really doing the Burning Man thing where you just buy a ticket and go, and everything else is mostly up to the people who come to present and entertain each other. And it actually worked out really well. I believe that, 1 out of every 7 attendees was also presenting, putting on some sort of a thing. So it was great.
How many attendees? What's the size are we talking about?
I don't know if the official census is out, but I believe I heard somewhere around the range of 500.
And that's across, you said there are multiple camps?
I mean, it's one large camp area. I don't know.
Well, yeah, yes, this person went to Vibe Camp 1 or Vibe Camp 2 or something.
Oh, Vibe Camp 1 was last year. Vibe Camp 2 is this one.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so there are about 500 people at this campground.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, did you have a good time?
I had a fucking amazing time. I was in the middle of writing up a blog post when I realized I am going to be late to the podcast if I don't stop, because it got to be too long. All my blog posts get to be too long, but this one especially. So I'm going to finish it up once we're done here. Hopefully it'll be up before midnight, and it talks... Well, it's going to talk some about Vibe Camp, but there's so many things I want to say that there's going to have to be 4 or 5 different blog posts altogether, but this is going to be the first one.
Sounds awesome.
I had just the best time, and it felt like a bit of a life reset. Not full life reset, but just one of those turn it off and turn it on again resets.
I need one of those. I thought that's what my trip to my vacation in May was going to be. And it was It was a bit of that, but I came back on more quickly and more fully than I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I came back to my desk at work, and it was like I never left.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, to do a full life reset, it really requires like extraordinary measures. You got to go to like a major festival, something.
I thought this was kind of extraordinary measures, but I'll try anything else. I'll try something else. So the reason I wanted to ask about this too was whoever it was at the meetup, I think it was George, said that it's like exclusive Twitter friends. And as somebody who's not on Twitter, can I get like buddied in next year if I wanted to go? Or do I have to join the dark side and be on Twitter?
I literally don't know. I think it's possible to somehow get buddied in because there were children there, so they don't have their own Twitter accounts. I'm not sure if there are any spouses that of people who aren't on Twitter themselves. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I could make an account and like follow you just to get on this next year, but you know.
That may be all it takes. There were some people there who like have almost no presence on Twitter at all. Like it's not just for people who are active on Twitter. Like I'm barely active on Twitter, you know? It's Twitter was just a lot of how they organized the thing and sold the tickets and all that. So as long as you have an account on Twitter, I believe you can at least apply and possibly get a ticket.
Well, cool. Well, since I'll be leaving Reddit in like 10 days, I'll need something else to... I don't want to like jump straight onto Twitter, but maybe I'll get on it by this time next year and I'll go to Vibe Camp. So
what's going on with Reddit?
Remind me to Baze blast you about it. It's actually pretty interesting.
I look forward to being blasted.
Happy early birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
Everyone in the listening audience just gave you a happy birthday as well. So
yeah, thanks guys.
Well, speaking of the audience, do we want to jump into feedback?
Let's do it. We ask specifically for someone to tell us, hey, what is this blue and orange morality thing? I can't believe I didn't run across this. It's a thing on TV tropes. I don't know. I guess just somehow this got past my radar, but it's another axis on the morality spectrum, like lawful, chaotic, good, evil. There's another one called blue and orange, which is specifically there just to refer to alien moralities that are completely unrelated to anything, which is why they call them blue and orange. Because like, what does that even mean to a human? Why is blue a thing that you would want or anti-want, and orange the opposite? So yeah, just completely alien morality that doesn't track with anything that we humans track.
Awesome. Well, in your defense of not making the connection, I don't think he ever said blue and orange morality. He just said blue and orange. And so I could have Googled that and I didn't bother, but I don't think I ever used it. Like it was clear his thing about morality, but it might have also been like styles of thinking or whatever.
Yeah, but it's an obvious enough reference that if I was familiar with it, I would have got it.
Oh yeah,
like the others were pretty obvious ones too.
Yeah, now it is, but yeah, so it's a 3-dimensional like line graph: lawful to chaotic, evil to good, and necktie to bacon. I'll let you guess which ones are orange and blue.
Ah, I mean, it should be obvious, really.
Yeah.
You want to grab the next one?
I haven't seen this. What is this? Oh, this
Who
is
would
the
like
audiobook.
to have an audiobook. Yeah.
So it is being Patreon supported. All right, way to go.
Yeah, there is enough Patreon support for him to put out, it sounds like 2 episodes per month. That's fucking awesome.
That's great. I'm happy to hear it.
Congrats, everyone.
Frankly, I feel embarrassed, but I didn't actually check it out on Patreon. I kept plugging it and didn't go. So I will open that now and add it before you hear this, Ask Who.
And there is a link in the show notes to... It's a place where you can host podcasts for free, where this is being published by Ask Who.
Acast,
yes.
So we've got I Stand Leet.
Quite possibly.
I'm gonna say that's how you say it. I want to note for Stephen that Eliezer Yudkowsky quote on Harry was "My 18-year-old self with Constitution and Wisdom swapped," and I've heard you say "int and Wisdom swapped" multiple times. And given Eliezer's disparagements of his Constitution and hubris of his intelligence/wisdom, it's a really impactful difference. Love you, and Eliezer Yudkowsky. Thank you. I Stand Leet. I forgot the quote, so I appreciate being corrected. I don't know what Constitution would map to in real life. Isn't that hit points?
Yeah, ability to be injured.
Yeah, I mean...
Because he's a wizard, and wizards are impervious to a lot of damage.
So he's saying he was way wiser than Harry as a kid.
Yes.
Okay. I thought that he was going to say, yeah, see, that's the hubris bit. That's why I thought he said intelligence and wisdom swapped. But okay, Constitution and Wisdom. Fair enough. I like it. Good catch.
I could have sworn it was charisma and wisdom.
Well, now we're going to have to go back and listen.
Ah, damn it. All right. All right. This was crap. I didn't note who said this. So I don't know if it was a direct quote, but somebody on the Discord made the comment, or the gist of the comment, that when I was saying that people should be allowed to just give sex as a gift, because obviously maybe not in the real world, but ideally, yeah, that should be great. The comment was, if you let people give sex as a gift, people will feel pressure to do so when they don't actually want to. And like, yeah, I mean, I understand that. That is a downside, but like, that's a downside of letting anyone give any sort of a gift for anything. Like, people may feel pressure to give a gift when they don't actually want to for all sorts of reasons. Oftentimes, we call those graft and corruption, bribes as they may be. This is not an uncommon problem. And I don't know, I can see how in a world where you cannot control reproduction, where having sex often leads to pregnancy, and also there's a lot of sexual disease running rampant, then you might have to put really tight screws on sexual expression in general. But like, in a world where that's not the case and sex is just another great thing that people can do, like, yeah, they are going to feel pressure sometimes to do that, and that sucks. And hopefully we have people agency enough to resist that pressure. Sometimes they're not gonna, but like, I sometimes feel pressure to give money to people. I regularly am walking along the streets and people are like, hey, give me some money. I'm going to die if I don't get my heroin. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not going to do that. So,
often they also want like food and, gloves, but
they say they want food and gloves.
But so was the ... okay? Was that you or the quote?
That was me.
Okay.
That was me being like, yeah, I know that. Right.
Because that sounds like an objection I would have made, like the thing in quotes here, that if you let people give sex as a gift. I mean, I don't think anyone should be, like, I don't know what it means to not let somebody do something, but like if we encourage the societal norm of like sex as a gift, I mean, like every nice guy trademark who, whatever, helps the girl move and then wants sexual favors in return.
Yes, but
if that was like a societal expectation, then it would just be like, it would be like another weird layer of...
So that shouldn't be a societal expectation.
I agree.
Okay.
That people shouldn't be expected to pay with sex, or that shouldn't be like a usual way that people pay for things. Like if someone helps you move, good payments include things like money, beer, or pizza, right?
I mean, if you're talking, yes, those are common things that people will gift to other people,
and like usually it's not like whatever a reach around,
Sure, but what if you wanna?
Yeah, so I guess if you want to go nuts, it's just like I think then it would make...
That's the entirety of my argument.
Yeah, I think that encouraging it as a social norm would mean that like then whenever any nice guy says it, it'd be like if we were to encourage...
No, why? I don't know why you're bringing in the nice guys here. Like, fuck those guys. They aren't. They're trying to extort sex by being shitty. Like
they're trying to extort sex by being nice.
Are they being nice though? That's very much like when you go to a foreign country and someone like grabs your bag when you come out of a taxi and hauls it over to the hotel for you, the hotel door, and then is like, "Yep, tip now, tip for the service." It's not actually being nice.
That's a good point. And if we had time to dig into this, we would, but I will leave it at that.
Yeah, like I don't want the social norm to be like now you're required to give sex to people for whatever. That's a terrible social norm, and I feel slightly offended that would be thought as the implication. It should just not be the social norm that people are shamed for trying to give sex or kisses or something as a gift.
Yeah, no, I like that. I guess what I was thinking was we could spend more time digging into this, but I do think that like things for like helping friends with stuff, usually it's not like about, well, now I owe you $30. It's like, well, I'll help you next time you need something, right?
Yeah. That's what friendship is.
Yeah. Well,
it's not like it's not when I help you do things, I don't expect a blowjob from it either.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're not disappointed.
I don't even expect a gift. Like I brought some of my little story collections to give out at Vibe Camp, and for a few people I gave them. I was like, you really made this vibe special and better for me. I would like to give this to you as a gift, and it's the same kind of thing.
And not one blowjob in exchange, huh?
Well, I mean, a gentleman never tells, Stephen.
Of course. Well, we've got another gentleman, Lord Sirth, gentle person. So they've got a theory. They say that there's no word for a second in Galarian. Round is the smallest unit of time, which happens to map to 6 seconds. I can dig it.
Yeah.
It still means that Keltham's his wrist device that he never calls it a watch, really, right? When he's talking about it, he doesn't remark that it used to keep time in what we called seconds, and that rounds are longer than seconds. But I like the idea.
Yeah, because he does have some trouble specifying short units of time. He like defaults to heartbeats or breaths or something, right? Whenever instead of using seconds.
That is kind of fun, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think that he has like when it was like lunch break, whatever it was, like 12 half minutes or whatever he called it.
Yeah.
Some weird segment of time.
Right. Maybe he's going to try to say 6 seconds at some point, and the translation engine is just going to pop the word round into his head. And he's going to be like, oh shit, there's a word for 6 seconds in your language?
Nice.
Yeah. Also from Lord Sirth, he weighs in on our discussion about Singer's argument about wading into a pool to save a drowning kid. He says that the Watcher on Dothalan, the teacher person, the Watcher says that an adult Dothalani would immediately recognize the story as a deliberate manipulation. The children's thought process was, drowning child, saving requires ruining clothes, thinking about clothes versus child is evil, save child. The story manipulated the children into thinking that weighing the different parts of their utility function was morally wrong by explicitly opposing sacred and non-sacred values. The lesson was that this is irrational. There are no sacred values, only things you value more or less, that you should always think clearly and decide. And importantly, the Watcher explicitly stated that he could have exploited the same weakness to the point of driving everyone but Keltham nuts.
I like that distillation. I think that was spot on. I find Singer's argument persuasive, but not persuasive, all the way to, and no one finds it persuasive all the way to giving the clothes off your back away, right? I'm aware of one person who gives away basically everything, and that's Will McCaskill. Other than that, maybe some saints and monks that don't write New York Times bestsellers, but I think that Lord Sirth's analysis is correct. I disagree with the Dothalani's lesson that they're trying to teach here. Because, yes, it's manipulation, but so is any time you try and get anyone to help with anything, right?
No, I don't think so. I think the manipulation is that they're trying to make the kids put their utility function, mutilate their utility functions by putting a sacred value up against a non-sacred value. And the lesson is, don't do that.
Or don't have sacred values.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see, I think there are sacred values. In that, I care more about whatever my life and my spouse's life than I do about 5 random people, right? Even though that's grotesque.
Well,
I disagree that's grotesque, actually.
No, this is actually a really interesting thought, and maybe we should do a Bayesian conspiracy episode about Robin Hansen's recent writings about sacred values, because he's gotten some new stuff on that topic lately. I
would love to. That sounds great.
So what are you saying, that valuing your wife's life over strangers' lives is a sacred value or isn't a sacred value?
I think it is. I think that human life is sacred without the religious connotation, but I think human lives are sacred in a way that paintings aren't.
So you should value all lives equally is what you should be doing, is what you're saying?
I'm not sure what should means here. I'll have to give that some thought. That wouldn't be conducive to the content of this show, but
well, when you say all lives are sacred, does that mean that you feel bad when you value other people's lives less than your wife's life? Or do you think that that's a good thing, that you value other people's lives less than your wife's life?
I think it might be a bit of a contradiction that I'm kind of okay living with. I think that to kind of run through it quickly in my brain and try and word vomit something semi-coherent, I think that human lives have something approximating infinite value. Mm-hmm. Whatever the scale is there at the top, with dogs and cats below that and rocks at the bottom. Mm-hmm. But as a person, as a human being, I recognize that all human lives are super valuable, but I actually find myself caring more about some than others. Right.
I think that's good, actually.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
All right. Isn't that kind of the point that they're making, that you're allowed to value some things more or less than other things?
Well, yeah, except I think that the no sacred values thing, I guess, if someone was pain is bad, we should, hurl the earth into the sun to get rid of pain. I would say, no, fuck you. And I would actually even kill you to stop you from doing it, even though I think your life has infinite value, right? It's like a taboo trade-off. But
I think in that case, you're just being incoherent. You obviously don't think his life has infinite value.
that's why I say something approximating infinite. I think.
Well, I think this is literally what the Watcher is saying when he means I could drive everyone nuts, because they are saying statements like this and have to justify them somehow, even though they're incoherent statements. Like, you're just allowed to say that human lives don't have infinite value.
I will give that some more thought. I think. I mean, I guess I could say it has more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without being infinite,
you can say that a random standardized human life has more value than any other non-human life thing that you can think of. I would actually probably disagree with you.
What would you put one thing of that's higher than a human life? Like, you can't say like all of art, right? But you could say like the Mona Lisa.
Okay.
Or do you want to save this because we're almost half an hour in and we haven't started the show?
No, I mean, I'm thinking that there are some particular things that it might be worth risking death to defend.
Like our ability to travel quickly from city to city or whatever. We are willing to sacrifice 35,000 lives a year in the United States to have everyone drive cars.
That is one example. Yeah, I specifically was thinking about the cathedral at Westminster Abbey, as they call it, despite the fact that it's not an abbey. But like, that might be worth going to war over to prevent it from being destroyed. Maybe not like full-fledged war, but I might be willing to risk death if someone was invading to defend that thing.
This must be some hell of a pile of rocks. I got to see this thing.
It's awe-inspiring, and a lot of it is value that I put on it for reasons aside from the rockiness of it.
Yeah, no, of course. I was being tongue-in-cheek there, but I did read your blog posts about it, and I loved that it was so impactful, and I've definitely seen things that I really like too. But I mean, I suppose you're right. There are some things that are super, super important. I can't think of one right off that stirs me emotionally, but you'd be like, look, no, actually, this thing matters more than insert random one of 8 billion people. Yeah. Anyway, Max to the Max, great name. Talking about tipping. We incentivize people to take jobs from employers who underpay their workers. Tipping, because we worry people won't have enough money to make do, is creating perverse incentives. If new industries start asking for standard tips in places where they didn't use it to be any, resist as much as possible. I agree. That's the whole point that's the problem with tipping and basically the solution. I don't know if you've ever gone through like a self-checkout basically self-checkout. The person at the gas station, you hold the soda or whatever, they scan it, and then when they turn the thing around, there's still an option to tip. And it's like, I brought this to you. I did everything other than click the computer that said I could buy it. That is not worth a tip, unfortunately. No, I agree. It's one of those things. Anyone who hasn't seen Reservoir Dogs should see Reservoir Dogs and observe Mr. Pink's. Was it Mr. Pink? The Steve Buscemi.
Okay.
Everyone had code names. Have you not seen this movie?
I have seen this movie. I don't remember who it was that made this. I thought it was Quentin Tarantino that made the argument that he never tips.
I thought it was Buscemi, but I guess I can't remember. One of them says that they don't tip, and like everyone, even like they're like murderous gangsters, and like, you're an asshole. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, I think starting to tip serving staff, making a norm that everybody tips serving staff, was one of the greatest mistakes humanity has ever made. And I include Hitler because that. Like, literally what it says, it's perverse incentives to make people take jobs that don't pay them enough to live.
Yeah, it's a load of shit.
We shouldn't do that.
I mean,
fight against it.
The only plus side is that, like, it is nice if someone does do something above and beyond. It's like, oh man, can I give you $20 and like have it not be super, super weird?
Wait a minute, but wouldn't they then feel obligated to always give them the $20, Steven? Wouldn't they feel pressure even if they don't want to give them the $20?
I will let you know. The guy who came by and repaired our counter because it was still under warranty, he was there all day and did all the little minutia. But he actually missed like one spot. But I gave him whatever. I rounded up $15 to the nearest increment of money. And I will see if I feel pressure to tip again this time. So I probably won't.
I'm almost positive you won't. That's kind of my point, that just because something is permissive or permissible doesn't mean it is mandatory. And it seems weird to say that, like, well, if it's permissible to give sex as a gift, then suddenly it becomes mandatory. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You don't have to do that at all.
Touche, sir.
No, okay. I don't know. It's just It was a really easy dig to get in there. I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't a dig. You were
And I
right.
took it.
No.
Uh,
You didn't laugh. Or make me feel bad about it. You used that as a good example to illustrate the point. Well done.
Hey, all right. Thank you. All right, Gadbeeb. Gadbeeb says Carissa isn't evil. Cheliax is evil. Carissa is Hermione with a Cheliax upbringing. She's desperately trying to be evil because that's what she has been taught is right. She's willing to put in the hours to practice, even if it doesn't come naturally. So now we can always think of Hermione saying, "You shouldn't do that, Harry. It wouldn't be evil."
That is really funny, and I do love that. But I don't know if I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I might just not have a good understanding of what evil means, like both in terms of the story and in real life. Because she talked about not pulling her punches when torturing prisoners to death, because that's just what people do. Is they go, there's no reason to pull their punches, right? And that was before she made a dedication to trying to be as evil as possible.
But like, there's probably some prisoners that really deserve harsh punishments in the real world, right?
I'm willing to just bet a priori that the supermajority of the prisoners that Cheliax tortures to death didn't deserve it.
Well, yeah, but she doesn't know that. She thinks they do because that's what she was raised to believe.
I don't know, deserve or expect. Morality is complicated, but I don't think Hermione could ever be talked into whipping somebody until her arm got sore just because that's what her parents told her to do. She'd be the one who'd stand her ground and say, "No, screw you." That would hurt them, and that's bad.
But what if she thought it was helping them? Because then they would do better in hell.
That wasn't listed as one of Chris's motivations, and I imagine that she would also whip whatever heretics to other gods and stuff.
Yeah.
So that would just be to hurt them because they're not going to the hell that torture is good.
I honestly, ever since I read this from Gadbeeb, I have been reading Carissa as Hermione, except raised by Voldemort, and like Hermione raised by Voldemort really has strong Carissa vibes for me.
Yeah, it's a great parallel, and that might actually. I wonder if that's what Kelsey was going for in the character. It lands so well, except for me. Hermione is the epitome of goodness, and Carissa's not. So it's hard for me to live with that, no matter how much I think the vibes do match really well. So,
all right, last one. I commented in the last episode that I was kind of worried that two major characters didn't have character portraits. And does this mean they're going to die soon or something? And they didn't want to put the effort to get character portraits for them? Keiko says, Ione's and Elias's lack of character portraits was confusing and worrisome for me soon as it became obvious that they would be recurring POV characters. One theory I had initially was that it was part of the Constellations convention. By the way, the Constellation is the broader community of Glowfic and Glowfic writers and all them.
That's a good name for it.
Yeah. It was part of the Constellations convention that only characters who are intended to be accessible for crossovers are expected to get face casts, i.e. the characters that an author is interested in playing in a different story. The face cast would mean, please don't hijack this character, I have plans for them, and characters without face casts are fair game, which makes a lot of sense.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing Broom in 60 other stories. Oh, man. Well, great. Fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Content proper, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, book. So just really quick, book and chapters. Those are made up by, I'm going to call the group of people who do this our scribes. Did we already decide that, or did I just make that up?
That is true. And I believe, I'm not sure if it is Keiko specifically that has all the say here, or if it is a group effort. But yes, it is the scribes who have who are putting these chapter breaks and naming the chapters.
Well, someone let me know who's doing it, and you'll all get a shout out, even if it's just Keiko. But some of these are just outstanding. Well, actually, all of them are. But oops, it's time to overthrow the government. Was where I pulled up a note, and I'm like, who's doing these? Because I don't remember these when I was actually reading these on the regular site. So, Book 6, Consent, Chapter 47, What Can Be Destroyed by the Truth.
And I just want to say that I read almost all of this before I left for my trip to the East Coast almost 2 weeks ago. So my memory's going to be a little stretched here. I'm going to be relying on my notes more than usual.
Pretty much the same here, except I didn't go anywhere. But I think, as far as I remember, like what happens is like they've got their date coming up, their date night, and they spend a lot of time talking about the date night, Meta talking about it, and then she has to run off to talk to a cleric before they do the think of some perverse way of saying like the horizontal monster mash or something, but what would Cheliax call it? I'll think of something gross by the end of the episode. Oh wait, the good deed, because I could imagine like religious nut jobs calling it the evil deed or something, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So to them, since good is bad, yeah. All right, close enough. That's all I'm going to do.
I don't think so. I think they're going to continue to say that like sex is evil, but evil is a thing you want to do. So you should be having lots of sex.
Yeah. No, I guess I was thinking like fanatics on Earth, religious fanatics would say that sex is bad.
Yeah, but I mean, Galarian is just a reflection of that, right? So sex is still bad, but for Cheliax, that means you do it.
Right, because it's opposite day. Every day is opposite day on Cheliax.
Hell yeah. All right, so Carissa is talking about Keltham and like sort of really admiring him here. She says that Keltham saw immediately what a tragedy that was, the mess that Galarian is, what a tragedy that it was, and he wanted to teach it to literally everyone, the ability to think straight and not to be a broken, unable to be lawful human. He wanted to teach it to literally everyone not because he's good, he's not. He's a lot more good than people here because his surroundings were, but she can actually tell the difference, and he's not. You don't have to be good to see a mess, a lawful mess, if you'd like, and to wish that the beings in it stood taller, smarter, clarified, and free. And I lolled at that because she just described what good is.
Yeah, a lawless mess that where you want people to do better. Like,
yeah.
I think you really have to squint and do some gymnastics while doing it to say that's bad, right?
Yeah, I think this is like the very first thing after I read Gad BB's comment that Carissa isn't evil, and then we read here about her twisting herself in knots to say that no, this good thing that Keltham is doing, that's not good. Good is terrible. It's just very lawful to clean up a mess and help people to be better and stronger. Yeah, he's a really lawful dude.
Yeah, and it's, let's make people, let's make them worse off. Perfect. We did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if good people make people better off, bad people don't. I think it's fair. I think that's a fair generalization.
I would say that bad people make them worse off.
I would think so too. You can only set someone on fire so many times where they're just a worse person than they were before,
Yeah.
And so...
And he's here like trying to make people better people, and she's really twisting herself in knots to deny that, to not use that word.
Yeah. It's funny. She has this, like, this is right after I think she's thinking about, he's also a teenager way over his head and missing half the information he needs, and depending on which skills he grows in which order, he's very possibly going to demand, when Cheliax comes clean with him, that everyone involved in the decision to deceive him be tortured to death, which would be reasonable. She's totally unable to model somebody who's not an evil monster.
Yeah.
Or I guess someone who's not evil. She would probably object to the word monster. But he's going to be like, I understand. He's going to think for half a second, be like, no, that makes sense. I'd probably be monitoring me too, right?
Yeah. He's probably going to be a bit upset, but certainly not demanding everyone be tortured to death.
Yeah, she's going to be surprised when she starts seeing, he's going to be surprised when he learns what evil is, and she's going to be surprised when she learns what he thinks evil is.
Yeah. And, I would imagine that if Hermione had only seen evil monsters in her life, she'd also be unable to model someone who isn't that.
I could just disagree on principle that no, because she's perfectly good. She would just, she was born with quality and love in her heart, but
she's basically a phoenix.
Right. But I think you guys are right. And she does give off Hermione vibes, and I can dig it, but I don't want to taint my Hermione vibes with, Carissa Savar's evilness. But if she gets corrupted with true love and friendship, then I can lean into it.
All right. You just think of her as the fallen Hermione.
Yeah, my objection is strictly emotional. You guys are right when it comes to, I think, like, literarily. So
cool. Well, emotional objections are perfectly valid too.
This is literary analysis, right? That comes in.
It does, yeah. Literary analysis is just like throwing your emotions at the page and then trying to twist the words so they fit what you want.
Perfect.
All right. So she is trying to get herself back in the mood to be excited about Keltham because she's got other things bugging her and really pulled the wind out of her sails. So she's saying, yeah, you know what? She wants to sleep with Keltham because she wants everything he has, and she wants to see more pieces of him, and she wants it very, very badly. And she sits with that and lets it fill her up, the longing to see the end of the path, the longing to tell him things and watch him think about them, to check the little Keltham that she's building in her head against the real thing and see if she gets it yet. There, that's better. She goes to dinner. And like the funny thing was that this worked on me too. I was also, before this, totally distracted by all the torture and other stuff.
And now you want to sleep with Keltham.
And now I want to sleep with Keltham. Yeah. No, but now I'm excited for the relationship to progress again. I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want when I am excited about relationships. I'm on board. Good job. Good knowing humans. Good writing.
I like it too. It was well done, and I'm glad that you pulled it out because it landed better, or landed more strongly the second time that I saw it. Because yeah, I mean, like she was distracted because earlier, her god talks to her, through two intermediaries, but like, oh my god, he knows me, and like that's her biggest priority right now. She's not thinking about getting dicks down, right? Mm-hmm. But she's like, well, hold on, I can still be excited about other stuff, and I do like this guy. This is also fun. Okay, this is also still a priority. Good, let's do it.
Yeah.
The especially, well, I guess Ione too. Everyone who we've had a POV of seems really, really self-aware, and I totally dig it.
Yeah, I do too. It makes for more interesting characters. They feel more agenty.
Yeah, and they make for interesting characters, and they are more agency. But like that's just not how most people and how most of us are most of the time, right? Like most of us would be like distracted, thinking about the god stuff. And
that's true.
Like, well, yeah, I was thinking about this, but I'm still busy about this, and not have the meta thought of, wait, hold on, I can think about the god stuff tomorrow. I want to stay excited about the date thing tonight. I think a lot of us come around to that, but it's not in the same paragraph of thought, right?
Right. Well, I mean, but as you just pointed out, like we do sometimes think those things, and we aren't with these characters like 24 hours a day. We don't see them when they're pooping or when they're doing other boring things. You just get the good
sex
stuff.
Yet, so she's going to surprise him.
Oh my God, Stephen, no, please.
I hope not.
Please stop.
Hell's forbid, but we'll see.
Oh, shit. You totally derailed my train of thought now. Oh, right. We don't see all this stuff all the time. So if everyone just pulled out the most interesting parts of our day and put them on a page, maybe we would also seem to be far more introspective because, when we're going through the motions, doing the work or whatever, we aren't thinking that, but then we do think the interesting things, and that gets put on the page and not all the other stuff.
100%. And if I were to write a story starring me, I would make myself look smart, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Smarter and sexier. Maybe funnier too.
It's always easier, I think, to do all those things when you have like time to think about it and draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have time to do that because we got to keep rolling. So
you said that you predicted Yash will pull this quote?
Yes.
Huh, neat.
Oh yeah, I put that in my notes, and I put it in one other place too.
Oh, neat. Awesome.
And I was right on both counts.
So the quote is somebody says like, I don't know, how you doing? What's up? One of those things where a common pleasantry, right? In the US, it's very often, how are you doing? And you reply, fine. Keltham replies, nope. I do remember what exact thing that he asked was asked.
She asked, because he seemed distracted. She said, you okay?
Ah, okay.
Right.
And Keltham says nope, because in Dothalon, there's no pleasantries that you're meant to respond to with lies. And if there were, the people would revolt against their language and start over. That's pretty cool. I assume that if they do see someone and don't particularly care how they're doing, they just say hi instead of, are you okay? So that's kind of cool. It reminded me of playing Mystic Messenger, which was a phone dating game thing, Korean game. And when you're playing a girl and, there's various harem of boys and you get to end up with one of them, but every single one of them would frequently start their conversation with, have you eaten yet? And it really bugged me. I was like, why are you monitoring this girl's eating habits? This seems really shitty of you. Why is this just okay in the random dating game?
Can I take a guess?
Is a romantic thing. Please do.
Because then it's an excuse to invite them out to a meal.
No.
Oh, so what do we got?
It was just randomly dropped in the beginning, and lots of times there was no no response that made sense. It was just something like, hi, turns out, have you eaten yet is just a common way to say hello. Like when we say, how you doing? Because there was a time a few hundred years ago where there was a major famine, and the best indication of whether someone was having a good day or not was just whether they'd had some calories that day. And it turned into a shorthand way of just saying hi. And it stayed around in the culture. So when they translated the game, they literally translated, have you eaten yet? Rather than the equivalent of hi or something that would make more sense to a reader like me.
That's fun. I like that. And I like how language artifacts, stay in like that.
Yeah.
I think it was comedian Tom Segura who said that there are two answers to how are you doing? Good and fine. And if you're doing terribly, the answer is fine.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Which, that's just how society is. If I took my cat Zelda, who I got before I played Tears of the Kingdom, by the way. We got her in December 2019. That was her name at the shelter. That's part of how we knew it was fate that we get her. Took her to get her nails, to get a mani-pedi today, because I can't do it because I'm scared. It's $10 to do it at Petco.
Cool.
And I said, "How are you doing?" to the person. If she had said, "Oh my God, I'm this has been a really hard month or something," and like we just got into it, that would suck, right?
I mean, maybe you shouldn't have said, how you doing then?
If
it'll train you out of that habit
exactly.
over time.
If it happens enough, then I'll have to think of some other way to greet people. But when I was getting my last haircut, I was like, "How you doing?" "Oh man, my lease is up because my roommate's moving out, and I can't find a place to live because they want 3 times the month, the annual rent for salary, and no one makes that." And like she went into this whole thing about how hard it was to find a place to live, and I was like, I just wanted to, I was hoping you would just say, "Good, how's yours?" But it's and we got into talking about it, but it was sometimes it's unexpected, right?
Was your interaction, was your life experience for that day better due to the fact that you did get into it?
No, but I'm glad I was there if she needed somebody to vent at.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was, and that during the haircut and thereafter, I was worried that like, I hope that she found something that's working out because this sounds really stressful.
Yeah.
And having shaky grounds on like, where am I going to live? That's a nightmare. And to think that I just talked to somebody who like might be, in a really tight bind like that's a drag.
Yeah.
But, I'm happy that I was there. I did have like the emotional stamina that day to like, take that. So it wasn't like, it crushed my day or anything. So I'm happy that I was there for her to vent at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might be good for us to get better at finding some way to tell people when their conversation is being hard to process. I was stuck in a car recently with someone who just like was just talking how terrible everything is and his life is awful and just constant grating. And after I think like 20 minutes, I was like, I don't want to hear about this anymore. We should stop talking about this because it is really harshing my vibe or whatever. I cannot take this, and I'd rather sit in silence for a while if that's what we should have to do. And I'm glad I did, but it'd be nicer if there was a way to say that more quickly and easily.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why also when I ask like how someone's doing, if they just try and say like they try to run past it, I will try to catch them like, hold on, I actually do want to know how you're doing. Unless it's like whatever, the cashier at Petco or something, right? And it's just kind of like a quick transaction. Unless I'm using that person as a means to an end, then I do actually want to know, right?
Yeah. Keltham then quotes, "That which can be destroyed by the truth should be," and thinks in his head about like how there's nuances to this. One of the things he thinks is sometimes it makes sense to not push a truth on others if you think it'll hurt them. And I don't know how I feel about that, because that sounds, on face value, that sounds true. Like you don't want to hurt people. Like if I think lifting a certain amount of weight is going to hurt someone rather than help make them stronger, I'm not going to push that weight onto them. But I think it's a dangerous thing to decide for someone else, oh, this truth is going to hurt you, so I'm not going to tell you. Like there's so many ways that can very quickly spiral into abuse, and even like not intentionally, just kind of like people are good at deceiving themselves too. I don't think I would want someone to make that decision for me. Just give me the fucking truth, and it's my issue whether I can handle it or not.
It used to not be uncommon for doctors to lie to people, especially women, that they had a terminal illness.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they wouldn't handle it and they would stop doing their life properly. So I'll just, I'll handle this knowledge for them.
Kind of fucked up.
I agree. This is the first like really hint that jumped out to me that I think Dathalon might not be as ideal as we keep thinking it is. At least the idea of the keepers. Because
Yeah.
they seem really gatekeepy about like lots of knowledge and even stuff that doesn't seem all that harmful.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that there are some truths that, you know, if you push on somebody, you might hurt them. And this sounds like the kind of like condescending. I think we talked about this before. You know, back in the New Atheist days of, you know, some of the pro-religion arguers would say, well, of course you guys can be fine without it. And, you know, maybe even I could too, but a lot of the masses out there, they need religion, you know?
I remember that.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, that seems so condescending to say, well, you know, you and I are tough, but they need it, right? And yet, you know, I haven't talked to everyone I know about my thoughts on the possible, not to pull my punch, the end, you know, on the possible end of the world, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's a thing that I think might happen, you know, and one thing I can totally do is just wait to see how the next couple of years go to give me some more evidence before I start talking to them about it for real. You know, if it seems like we're definitely headed for oblivion, I'm going to tell them to stop saving and start spending and, you know, have fun and do things. But they're, you know, I'm not going to, I don't know. You know what I mean? So that sounds like a truth that could, well, that's also not a truth. That's a speculation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is I think that might happen, right?
Yeah.
That's a truth. But, you know, like this comes up later, but like the fact that, you know, some people are into stuff that hurts in a sexual context, right?
Right.
And the keepers kept that one tight for reasons. It seems like they might have some times where they kind of pull that really quickly, you know? Free will is another example. It's totally doable to get over the awkward hurdle of it, but there's definitely like an existential crisis moment somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you gotta.
Do you?
I would rather have that choice myself. Maybe with the caveat that, you know, hey, warning, this is one of those things that might fuck you up for a while. If you're thinking about it, probably have some help or an advisor on hand. But see, if you want the truth, here it is.
I'm way too fucking Ravenclaw to like ever turn down, you know, a spoiler. Like, you know, if someone spoiler tagged that for me, I'd be like, I'm clicking that. Are you kidding me? You know, share this info hazard with me.
I mean, I think the culture matters. I'm pretty safe around drug use. I think, like, I read up about drugs I'm going to take before taking them. I start out low, like, and I know a lot of people aren't like that, but I feel like that I was brought up in, I don't know, exposed to a culture that is very safe about that kind of thing, or as much as you can be with those sorts of chemicals. And I think if a culture had similar norms about various info hazards, whatever, various things that might harm you if you know them, then you might, you know, adopt that same kind of thing where you say, maybe I'll wait until there's a confessor nearby before I try to think about this thing.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a time and a place for some conversations. Well, I like that.
You know, there was a interesting fan theory in our Discord. I don't know if it was unique to our Discord, if this came up somewhere else, but Dathalon may in fact be a totalitarian dystopia, and most people don't know it because life is great and they're doing good and everything's fine on the surface, but the keepers are basically the human equivalent of actual lizard people, where they're secretly controlling everything and deciding who can think what and manipulating the public for their own personal nefarious ends. I thought that was really delightful. I like
the
this fan
idea.
theory.
Aren't they all way too smart for that, though? They would all just yell now and kill all the keepers.
The keepers are much smarter, as everyone keeps saying. Like, they're listen to how Keltham talks about them. They might be legit smarter humans that are controlling all the less smart humans.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think I like it a lot. Just to nitpick a little, I don't like. I mean, it does sound like suboptimal, but I think calling it a dystopia
when everyone's happy,
then he lands on Cheliax.
Right.
If Dathalon was a dystopia, then what is this?
Right. All right, totalitarian utopia then.
Yeah, I can dig that. Honestly, that wouldn't be the end. That wouldn't be the worst case scenario for here either. I would like the choice, and I'd like to be informed. But like, if that would also threaten the utopia, then you know what? Lie to me, whatever. That's my quick thought. Don't at me on that one.
Cool.
All right, what do we got here?
Keltham is having his existential crisis here. He says that he's not sure he can be the Keltham that he was at lunchtime later tonight. The Keltham who's just running straight ahead and doing the thing, because that has different results in Dathalan than in Galarian. And I saw that, but I also don't know yet what other kind of person I can possibly be. I don't know how much you wanted that Keltham you saw before instead of a more unsettled one. This is really interesting when I read this now, because I remember reading this before Vibe Camp and feeling this, the same awfulness of like, I used to be this person. I was in a different world. I could run ahead. I would do the thing. It was awesome. And now I'm a different person. And I don't know if you want that person. It's a legit crisis of being a person, and it hit me in the feels. And now that I've had kind of like a psyche reset, I'm like, oh, I don't empathize with that nearly as much anymore. My comment would no longer be, God damn it. It would be more like, yeah, that does kind of suck, bro. I hope you can get through this relatively quickly. So
not so much identifying with it, but still getting where he's coming from, but more distantly.
Yeah.
I like it too. And it's I mean, I think everyone can relate to that. That's part of what makes it good writing. But also, like, part of it's just kind of funny because most of us have these, over the course of whatever months or years, right? And then you look back and be like, man, I wish I was like I was, in summer when I was, in 10th grade or whatever, right? Remember summer vacations? Sleeping in and sleepovers and all that stuff, like all that carefreeness. And it's like, oh, I wish I was that person. But he's just talking about like 2 hours ago. It kind of makes it funny, but you know, there are definitely things that happen, here on Earth without magic that can change who you are in less time than that. So
yeah. Well, in less time than 2 hours.
Yeah,
I suppose actually.
Yeah, something terrible. Yeah, usually.
Yeah,
maybe something great too.
It can certainly suck when you've been shattered, and now the person who thought you were one person doesn't have that person anymore, and you're like, well, I'm sorry. This is who I am now. I can't do anything about that.
If anyone wants to test and see if handing somebody a duffel bag full of $1 million changes who they are as a person, I volunteer as tribute.
Oh, damn it. I wanted to volunteer first.
Beat you to it.
Okay, fine.
Maybe I'll be the kind of person who wants to share it.
Hey, all right. I'll take that gamble. Carissa says that an existential crisis is the thing where you think too much about some question humans aren't good at thinking about and end up having the mental equivalent of the thing where you bite your lip and then have to avoid, every time you swallow, biting that exact spot again while it's swollen.
I love that analogy.
I also like this analogy, and one of the things I really liked about it is that Carissa's just like, yeah, man, you're having an existential crisis. That happens. People have those all the time. They suck, but we know about them. And like Keltham is so terribly affected by his getting 2 points of wisdom and suddenly thinking all these deeper things about himself, because apparently in Dathalan you just don't have existential crises. They're completely immuno-naive to the existential crisis virus. And it's kind of hilarious that he thought the problem was that people in Galarian were missing a part of them, when the issue was that he's missing the part that has calluses against existential crises. It's the fact that he's really naive, and that's kind of endearing.
I hadn't made that explicit connection yet, and I think you're exactly spot on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's they get existential crises since they're old enough to learn how to talk and told that you're going to be tortured when you go to hell, right?
Right, yeah.
And the closest they have on Dathalan is the drowning pond thought experiment, which is, a non-negligible existential crisis kind of thing. Well, it's not exactly existential, right?
Yeah,
it's a bit of a crisis, but I feel like that's probably the most stressful thing they go through, right?
Right. Well, I don't know. We get to some cool ass shit that they have to do in their childhood later.
That's true. But as far as like just the shit, what do I do with my life? Am I good enough? What's the point of all this? I don't get the impression that they run with that a lot. Like he's some kid. I don't know. I think they say he's 18. He's like, nope, I'm going to have 144 kids with 12 wives, and that's my life plan. And it's like that's a stupid plan. And I think I pointed that when he first said it, right? It's not, I don't know that it's unachievable, but like that's not happiness, right? But like that so he thought that like that's not the life plan of someone who's overcome an existential crisis, right?
Right. Yeah.
But that just means that he has room to grow, not that he's dumb. Well, it could mean that he's got gaps, in his wisdom, but I wonder what his wisdom score is versus what it went to.
I mean, it probably tripled.
So wouldn't that be something? He's got
It
like
probably
18
went
int and 2 wisdom.
right? And so he gets 2 more wisdom. He's like, boom, mind blown.
Yeah, I wonder, because it did seem like such a huge jump for him, right?
Yeah. It
But
could have been 4 more wisdom that he got.
I forget how much it boosted him. But in any case, yeah. Good call out.
Hmm. This was kind of interesting. Keltham says that somebody his age, 18, is supposed to save at least a year's expenses, which is fucking impressive at 18 to have an entire year's salary saved up already. And I guess that's what happens when you have a society that has defeated rent seeking, so that any gains in productivity just go back to the people. That's fucking amazing.
I think there's probably also the fact that he's allowed to work before graduating high school, right? And he probably gets paid for pulling kids out of ponds and whatever it is, right? Like,
I mean, sure, but I don't think that explains very much of it at all. Like, we allow people to work starting in mid high school usually.
yeah.
I mean, it's shit work. That's true. I don't know. I just think it's the fact that they have Georgia's land taxes. They have other things that defeat rent seeking and the capture of any productivity gains.
Well, I mean, like, and a year's worth of expenses might literally be like the spending power of $2,000. You know,
Right.
just because
Yeah.
food is probably costs next to nothing, housing costs next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what they actually have for expenses for what they need is probably next to nothing.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
why should those things cost anything?
When you have a society that's post scarcity, they shouldn't.
Right. And they're not post scarcity. They're just sane, I guess.
Well, they're post scarcity. They're not like, we have everything in infinite supply post scarcity, but like they're not like, oh, we're running low on food or room, right?
I mean, I think post scarcity has a specific definition, and it does mean that you have an infinite supply of any material goods.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
I'm misusing
possibly,
it. But
possibly an infinite supply of energy. I'm not sure.
They're not living in a scarce society. They're not living in a society with scarcity.
Yeah,
you're right. Post scarcity is a special thing.
Yeah. Okay. He also mentions that there's entire cities of actors that do nothing but play out unending, elaborate fantasies that people can pay to wander into for a day or a year. And that is fucking dope as hell. Oh my God.
That was the second thing I highlighted, that Sidinius would love this.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be, I mean, we have weak versions of that. And, depending on how dedicated you are, we probably have medium versions of that here on Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, the farthest most of us go is like Ren Fair.
Yeah.
Where you can put on a costume and an accent if you want all day and people won't laugh. Mm-hmm. But that's about it. I
would say that Burning Man is kind of this sort of thing too.
I haven't been, so I can't compare. Are they playing out elaborate fantasies the whole time where it's like, all right, we're gonna do space Vikings over here, right? Everyone commit. And if you go over there, you're surprised that everyone's, acting like space Vikings.
There are some places that have some stuff like that, but by elaborate fantasy, I mean more the fact that they're role-playing a post-scarcity society for a week, which is awesome.
And it's all the more role-play in the fact that they're doing it in a place where like there's not enough water to shower.
Yes.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it sure sounds fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be one hell of a vacation.
Yeah. Keltham finally finds out that Galarian sex work is very much like, sex work in medieval Europe. It's shit. And that sucks. Sad frowny.
And not entirely unlike the worst sex work still done today.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's, far, they're far from the ideal that Kelvin keeps describing and like assuming is obvious, which is basically like everyone's Ayla, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, man, if women aren't allowed to, have jobs or own a house, like you're saying that they would just go out and find a king and have that king give her $2,000 for sex. Like, what are you kidding me? The king's just going to grab her and have sex with her. And he's like, but why wouldn't people revolt? Like, that's insane. He's struggling to understand like what a bad equilibrium can look like.
Yeah.
And he's being exposed to like one for the first time here in Galarian, but like he keeps being surprised. And of course he is. Like, you can't see a few examples and then assume you can, paint the rest of the picture, right? When it's all a whole alien landscape. Mm-hmm. But it's fun watching his constant, like, I just kind of like imagine like this meter, just like ticking down And it's like, he keeps thinking it's the bottom, but then it's like, oh, it keeps going.
Right. You have not even begun to reach the bottom.
Right. He's going to think that he's seen, like, once he sees slavery, he's going to be like, okay, I've seen the bottom. And he's like, oh, but I haven't seen what they do to slaves, like, when they're not forcing them to work at whip point. Like, they're cutting them in half for fun. Oh my God. Like, he's going to be, when he finally sees the full picture, he's going to lose his mind.
Yeah. And at some point, he's going to see hell, and we're going to see hell, and it's probably going to be worse than I'm imagining already.
I think you're probably right.
Mm.
I liked, he's talking about about STIs, the contagious illnesses that we still have in Dathalan, because we eliminated anything that we didn't know how to treat easily, probably long enough ago that happened before the screen.
Mm.
And that was just because we talked about the screen a few times here. And I think, like, I'm still curious what the explanation is, but I think, like, narratively, it makes sense because if Kelpham just had, like, a background understanding of all of human technological development, he wouldn't have his problems would be a lot easier to solve here, right?
Yeah.
What he has instead is the tools to, like, reinvent the wheel. He doesn't know how to make one.
Yeah.
And, like, meta narratively, Eliezer doesn't know everything and doesn't want to write a character who knows everything. So, because then you have to look everything up all the time, right?
Right.
And that also just seems boring. So he has, Keltham, who can still struggle to solve problems, even though they're, like, solved, but solving them from scratch is different.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool.
I think so too. It kind of reminds me of the whole keepers as lizard people idea, and also the fact that there's only 1 billion people on Earth. Maybe the screen was when the keepers took over, massacred, 7/8 of the world population, and then just made all the background history disappear. Anyone who tried to talk about it would get massacred as well, and that's how they impose control.
That sounds distinctly plausible.
Nice. All right. I still don't think it's true, but I like this conspiracy theory we're building up.
Totally. Speaking of cool theories, your next bullet point, yeah.
So Keltham is wondering if Dathalan used to have gods, and that's what the Great Screen is meant to protect. Because apparently the gods get more powerful if you believe in them, and at some point they had to kill all the gods and then just erase all memory of them so that they didn't come back. I think that's a really good fucking theory, considering what knowledge Keltham has. And, I mean, might even be true, as far as we know.
Is that an inference from, Earth gods? Or did they say that in the story, that gods are stronger the more you believe in them?
Isn't that in the Galarian thing? So I just assumed that as a background knowledge of any setting that has gods, because that's a very common thing. But I don't actually remember if we've had that confirmed on Galarian. Have we not?
I don't think so, only because they would probably have to have answered why they don't teach about Ottomans in every elementary school classroom across the planet. Because you'd want that god to be, well known and believed in, right? If not necessarily worshipped. Strong.
Well, you don't necessarily want the god to... I do think it's usually worship rather than knowledge, but, you can't worship something you don't know about.
And you're right, it can't just be knowing about, because that's what every god is conniving for, is, I want the attention, thou shalt have no other gods before me, kind of thing. Yeah, you're right. I think their power comes from being believed in, which is common god trope, for sure. I assume it's probably true here, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I'm not sure either. That may not have actually been said in the story, and might just be something I'm importing as a thing I've taken from other fantasy. Because
I kind of see them more as forces of nature, like the gods on Erb, than whatever. There's a handful of supernatural episodes where they encounter some lesser gods, and those are just more funny. And they complain about, oh well, back when people believed in me, I was way stronger. Now I've got to do this piddly shit.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I do think that, given what we know about this world, this is a really good theory for Keltham to have.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it would be really cool, and it would work.
Mm-hmm.
It clearly did, right? If this is what happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
He thinks a bit more about the Great Screen and how hard it would be to do. He says it would take a huge effort to keep not just the phenomenon, but the physics behind it out of all the textbooks. But that's the magnitude of effort Dathalan put into the Great Screen. There remains the unexplained question of why Keltham does not know any standard speculations about hypothetical super agents. Yeah, so this is interesting because I don't know how long in the past we were already thinking about hypothetical super agents, but at least since I was a child, people were thinking about AIs.
Since the mid-century, at least, when sci-fi was taking off,
Yeah.
Asimov's stuff, they were boring superintelligences by today's standards, but they were superintelligences.
Right. Like the last question was a Asimov story, which centered around a superintelligence at one point. Yeah. So if Keltham is not aware of any standard speculations about hypothetical super agents, it may in fact have been gods that they're getting rid of, or possibly the idea of AIs. That maybe that's what the Great Screen is supposed to protect humanity from. And maybe the Keepers are secretly working on alignment in the background and suppressing any knowledge that something like AI could even exist so that the humans don't try to race and create it.
I like it. And it's one more of those things. Like, they didn't teach them what it's like. They never Newcomb boxed, thought experimented them, right?
Yeah.
Because
maybe they did. I don't know. We haven't heard about it yet, though.
Well, but Omega is a super agent, or at least a super intelligence. Or, maybe constrained, not really. They could do it with technology and say we scanned your brain and they can just rule out Omega completely and still do the thought experiment.
Right. They would have done it differently, though. They definitely not within Omega.
Yeah.
Neat.
But yeah, it's interesting that they don't have, stuff like that. And he's thinking like, as soon as I heard about gods, these are the kinds of things we could have hypothesized about and, had some interesting thoughts about. And yet no one there does that. It makes it interesting, or makes me wonder that he says that's the magnitude of effort Dathalon put into the Great Screen. Like, are they allowed to look into why this happened?
I'm certain that not.
I'm certain not too, but he constantly talks about how they can do whatever they want.
Except for try to look behind the Great Screen.
Well, but he doesn't.
I mean, he doesn't say that, but we can infer it.
But isn't that interesting that that's like a blind spot for him? Granted, he's decided not to keep talking about the screen until he gets a better picture of what's going on. But yeah, like the next thing Krista says is like, it's interesting that you can have sex workers, if they're also allowed to do other stuff. And he says, I'm not sure if there's literally anybody on my planet who's, quote, not allowed to do other stuff. The idea that like someone might be restricted in some way is so insane to him that there might not be anyone on the planet that he can think of that might be in that situation, right?
But then he just doesn't even occur to him that you can't even find the phenomenon in textbooks that might lead to a Great Screen breach because it's just so part of his water, his air.
Yeah, that's the inverse of like the lizard people did it to destroy the gods. It could be the gods did it to whatever, isolate themselves from Dathalon.
And it's because the Dathalanis were getting too close to overthrowing them all.
I mean, maybe.
It could be the Great Screen is like the Tower of Babel for the gods.
Yeah.
Neat.
We'll see.
I was thinking, remember Three Worlds Collide?
Oh, yeah.
How they turned the sun, they had a tech that could make any sun go nova, regardless of its size.
It
like
was
pretty darn easily.
Yeah, when they're getting the tech dump from the super happies who are technologically advanced, they're like, hold on, this number is way lower than we thought it would be. It seems really easy to make a sun go supernova. Why did they lie to us? Well, we didn't want to tell people. The answer is obvious. They don't want to tell people that it was really easy to destroy our sun.
Yeah, the Keeper's like, about that.
Right.
The first time I heard about the Great Screen, I was thinking, I wonder if this is if the Three Worlds Collide is Dathalon in the future, and this is the point where they discovered that they can make suns go supernova, and so they Great Screened off that idea and all the physics that could lead to it.
It seems like they did more than that, like just that one piece of knowledge.
Yeah,
but it seems like it could be that sort of thing. It's like, all right, we're getting too close to letting people. I think there's an example Yudkowsky used somewhere of like, imagine if making a nuclear weapon was as easy as putting sand in a microwave. It's like, all right, well, we definitely have to erase the knowledge of sand and microwaves from everybody, right?
Yeah,
and we've got to make it impossible for them to invent microwaves because they're not all that hard to make when you know whatever radio physics, right?
That's true. You wouldn't need a Great Screen to hide the Three Worlds Collide tech.
Well, you need some. They put in a medium screen.
Yeah, it was a screen that people weren't aware of, though, whereas everyone on Dathalon knows about the Great Screen.
That's a good point. So yeah, it has to be bigger. The stuff that they hit on Dathalon, because everyone knows that the past is gone. It's not like, I can't find the second edition of my high school physics textbook anymore, right?
Yeah. I must have just misplaced it.
Yeah.
How strange that every physics textbook in the world has gone missing. I guess they were misplaced.
Right.
All right, so we learn a thing about the most high status and high attractiveness people in Dathalon here. And we don't actually learn it. We had learned this quite a few weeks back in a previous reading, but at this point, it's finally laid out explicitly for Carissa, where Keltham tells her you can't buy some very hot people with money. You've got to have done something they think is worthy. And the people who are obviously worthy, if they're willing to acknowledge you publicly as a fuck buddy, they're validating to the world that you are that hot and that good at sex. And then you're somebody who gets to decide whether some lesser incredibly rich person is cool enough to meet your standards. So basically, like, the really hot people kind of say, this person is so fucking cool. They're one of the best people in the world, and I'm fucking them. And conversely, the really incredibly accomplished people are like, yeah, you know what? That person is so hot. I'm fucking them and validating their hotness. It is what we got from before from what he told us about Dathalon, but it's cool to have that put forward explicitly, especially by someone who's a fan, because like reading it, it sounds both really awesome and really terrifying. And I don't know if I love it or hate it. I guess it's mostly awesome, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's JFK having sex with Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
The downside, of course, is like the inverse is like, well, if you're not accomplished and pretty, then you don't get to have sex with pretty people unless you can pay them enough. And then then you can't have sex with the prettiest because they're not taking money.
The thing is, that's already true in the real world, right?
Yeah, but the real world can suck too. I'm not saying that is a point of suckiness, but I'm just saying that that's not a. The fact that it's here doesn't mean it's an argument that it doesn't suck. A lot of the stuff you throw shade at is stuff that's here on Earth.
Yeah.
What were you going to say about why it's terrifying?
I mean, it feels a little terrifying because I don't feel like I'm terribly accomplished, and I would feel like I have to become much more accomplished in my life, and I just don't want to anymore. Does any of that make sense?
Yes, but I don't know how much of this is like podcast content, but I mean, I feel like while you might not have a harem of girls kicking your door down, I don't know if you're like exactly, starved for attention, right?
Well, okay, yeah, that's true.
So, maybe you're at a point where you don't want to accomplish more because you're like, I don't need to climb Kilimanjaro. I'm happy climbing this 14er instead.
Right. Yeah, I've reached the saturation point, and I'm pretty darn happy with what I'm getting out of it as it is.
Yeah, even if Marilyn Monroe if she did nothing but have sex with other people like nonstop if she did nothing but have sex with high status people, then she would lose status, and that would make her less valuable in that game, right?
I mean, in this world, yeah.
Right, yeah.
In our world, I mean.
Yeah. I'm using Marilyn Monroe and JFK for my hypothetical. And there is a saturation point where, like,
I see what you're saying.
The most desirable only have time for, a very, very, very few select people, right?
Right.
And so unless you're going to make it your life's goal to have sex with, like, the prettiest person that is currently super unattainable, then which sounds kind of like a narrow life ambition.
It sounds kind of lame.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Okay, you've convinced me.
All right.
So Carissa says something really weird at this point, and I think you got to help me out here. Carissa says, I don't think how hot someone is relates very directly to how much I expect to gain from having sex with them, and therefore how motivated I am to do it. Is she saying she doesn't get pleasure from sex with attractive people?
She says that that's not why she's motivated about it.
Isn't that just the definition of hotness? That, like, hotness is what motivates you to want to have sex with people?
Expect to gain from having sex with them, and therefore how motivated I am to do it. It might not be the most important factor. Maybe it's skill, or maybe with all the weird sex shit she does, they can never actually see each other, right? So the hotness doesn't matter.
Well, but if it is skill, then the most skilled dom in the world would be extremely hot to you, even if they're not like as physically attractive as you would like.
Right. So I don't think this is gonna be one of those things where, like, one of the listeners points out like the very obvious thing we're confused about.
Right.
I don't think
be like, oh,
how hot someone is relates very directly to how much I expect to gain for having sex with them. I think that might be the thing, is gain for having sex with them. So he's talking about it in terms of social capital. If you're one of the elites who, and I don't mean to objectify Marilyn Monroe, I know nothing about her except for the JFK thing. They did a movie that I don't think did that well, starring Ana de Armas, the nurse from Knives Out. And was it Joe DiMaggio?
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about.
Had sex with Marilyn Monroe.
I
only know that from an episode of Seinfeld. So anyway, I guess I'm not trying to objectify the person, but Someone might not have sex with Marilyn Monroe because she might not even be the most pretty, but she is. You get a lot of social capital for being on the short list. People who get to say, "I had sex with Marilyn Monroe," and I'm Eskimo
Yeah.
brothers with JFK, right?
Yeah.
So she's. I don't think that she's thinking of sex in the terms of social capital.
I'm sorry. Eskimo brothers?
Thank you. I thought you were going to let me run right past that.
Yeah. What is this?
It was a joke. I can't remember. The full context was on a TV show called The League, which was all right. That was the guy's term for two guys who've had sex with the same person. They're now Eskimo brothers. I don't know why he called it that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
It also lent itself to wordplay because then he wanted to make a database of it, the EBDB.
Okay. So, okay.
And then, like, you could use the database to, establish a user base for like an Airbnb style network, the EBDBB.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I guess what she's saying is that that's not current motivations that she has, is like to have sex with somebody to be like, oh my God, I had sex with this person, right? She does it for fun.
I'm just confused by the sentence. So she is motivated to have sex with hot people, is what she's saying, and that how hot someone is not related to how much social capital she'll gain from having sex with them.
I think it's that when she says I expect to gain, I think that she's not concerned with the social capital.
All right, so she's talking about pleasure then.
Probably.
But then how hot someone is literally, what you expect to gain in terms of pleasure when you have sex with them, unless we're using different definitions of hotness here.
I think that she's trying to talk about social capital in terms of gains there. And so she's like, that's not really what I think about when I think about how hot someone is or something. Well, I love the little things that derail us for this long. Like,
I'm very confused. Let's move on.
No, I mean, I am too, but I think what it's saying is that she has different priorities than social capital. And I'm sure Keltham might. He still strikes me with strong virgin energy, so I'm not actually sure, but I sort of doubt that the only reason people have sex on Dathalan is social capital. They probably also do it for fun. But
I'm sure. I think it was just like at the upper echelons, that's a major kink as well.
Is what
I don't think it's fair to call it a kink because I think everybody's attracted to status.
Thank God. I was going to be like, because I thought I understood what this word meant, and then you threw it out in a context that was like, hold on, this doesn't sound like any. Okay.
I think the word kink has evolved a bit over the past couple decades to just mean something people find hot.
We can just say evolved or diluted.
Yes, diluted. Yeah, it got turned into Nazi.
Right.
It got Nazified.
Nazified. The downside is that, like, there's still actual Nazis with, like, the flags and everything. And there's still actual kinks.
Yeah, that is a downside, and now we don't have words.
The downside is that, like, there's still actual Nazis with, like, the flags and everything. And there's still actual kinks. But, like, having sex with smart people is my kink. And it's like, that's not a kink, right?
Oh my God.
Having sex with smart people, but you make them act like stupid people who have sex with them. That's a kink, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, come on. Think deviantly.
I agree with you, yeah. My kink is that I like to have sex with people who I know and feel an emotional connection with.
You filthy dog.
Okay, so
this is supposed to be a family program. They're talking about the pharaoh of whatever town who just like has his 200 hotties, and he can just be walking through a town and be like, oh, her, and just grab her, and like now she's part of the harem whether she likes it or not, right?
Right. Oh, did you get that that's Abadar's pharaoh?
Abadar. I'm sure I read that and then it totally forgot, so thank you for reminding me. Because she even has that, I remember she like, and I don't know if I'm allowed to tell him he's Abadar's yet.
Oh, right, yeah.
He's going to have some feelings about how Abadar runs things, or allows things to be run in his name. But apparently he identifies with Keltham, which means that this pharaoh business is going to be clashy. His inability to grasp like what it's like to live, somewhere shitty. Mm-hmm. And he was like, suppose that the hypothetical Dathalanis had the false sense that things had always been like this for decades, where they'd like lived with this pharaoh and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't even take until whenever the pharaoh first ordered a woman for her to go, wait, why am I obeying this order when I'd rather not obey it? Which tells me he's lived a very sheltered upbringing.
Yeah.
But then he says somebody would be thinking about city politics first thing when they woke up in the morning, and they'd go, wait, why do I have a pharaoh in the first place? He's like, within an hour, they would be pharaohless, right? They'd be done. But he just doesn't understand, like, sometimes there are bad people with military might who will smash your babies if you don't listen to them, right? This just hasn't occurred to him.
I mean, sort of it does, because then the question is like, well, why would the military obey the orders to smash the babies, right? They just would not do that. And then he goes, okay, then people wake up with the memory that everyone's supposed to kill anyone who talks about removing the pharaoh, and so on recursively. He's like, oh, yeah. That's one of the famous theoretical bad equilibria that we get training in how to shit. and that's when it occurs to him that he is living in this nightmare scenario that is a theoretical thing used in silly thought experiments on Dathalan, and they're living it here.
Yeah, the idea of living under like a suboptimal government or like a straight up bad one doesn't occur to him. And like on its face, that's not a dumb question, right? As bad as Stalin was, there were more people that he was, keeping under his heel than there were people in his army.
Yeah.
Why didn't they all just grab bricks and go for it, right?
Right.
It's because they all had loved ones that would be killed.
It's because coordination problems are actually hard in real life.
Yeah, and Voldemort nails one guy's skin to a newsroom and his wife and daughter, and suddenly people are less inclined to write bad things about him in the news.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's because they'll know they're next. He hasn't seen a really bad person before.
Yes.
It's one thing to have games where you talk about them,
mm-hmm.
but then it's like, well, obviously then we'd all just unite at the next eclipse and cut his head off. The end, right? And,
yeah.
That's a nice, little game, but it's really hard to do that when there's real stakes.
It's really hard to do that when the system is already set up to suppress that as efficiently and brutally as possible. He realizes that at this point, like this is when the light goes on, and he's like, if you were supposed to have killed me a few seconds ago, and you are putting your own life in danger not to do that, this would be a great time to casually nod your head, and then I'll censor a lot of my curriculum for here on out. And you got a comment about that.
Oh, I just liked how super chill he was. He's not looking over his shoulder to see if she's going for a knife or if security's, rushing in or, kicking the door in to rush his bum, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like, well, the cat's out of the bag. I just said the thing, right? Anyone listening already heard me. The fact that I'm still alive means that I guess that it's not punishable by death to have just said that.
I think it's slightly less than that, because he says, he just continues talking in a casual tone, not in any kind of obvious whisper. Like, when you're doing something that would be illegal like that, the worst thing you want to do is do anything that would be suspicious, right? You just want to keep being as casual possible. You want to be like Han Solo says, just fly casual, right? And so just continuing to talk casually, either they already heard you when you were talking casually saying the evil thing and you're doomed as it is, or they didn't, and if you suddenly change to like a whisper, they're going to be like, oh, what's going on? And they pay attention. But if you just continue talking casually, they continue to ignore you, because obviously whatever you're talking about isn't important and doesn't need their attention right now. So, either you're already doomed or you don't draw fucking attention to what's happening. Same reason you don't like freak out when somebody says a curse word around your kid, because then the kid is like, oh, wait, what was that word? Why are they freaking out? If you just completely ignore it, they don't pick up that it's supposed to be a bad word that they're not supposed to hear.
Every time I say bitch, I can get a reaction out of mommy. Hilarious.
Exactly.
I agree, and I think that is the right strategy. But whoever's listening isn't just reading their body language; they're also listening to the words, right?
He didn't know that, but yes.
But if they're being listened to, right, he wouldn't just say, "Well, they're probably watching through the window and listening to my body language." I think you're right. He's being chill about it, but it's also just possible he has no practice in like subterfuge, illegal deception, right?
Either they heard what he said and he's doomed, or they weren't paying attention, in which case he shouldn't draw attention.
That's true too.
Yeah, and Carissa is completely insanely tempted to casually nod her head.
I read that as a goof, right?
Me too.
Okay,
I thought that was wonderful.
She was just thinking like, it'd be so funny just to run with this and see what happens.
Troll him, and oh man, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But then she explains to him that actually coordination problems are hard. This equilibrium is extremely sticky. Overthrowing governments is really, really hard, and usually the thing that results when you overthrow a government is even worse. And she points out that the Chelish government is possible to improve in normal ways, like suggesting improvements.
This is another downside of the screen, is that like if you guys had a history, you guys have, presumably Dathalan, even if they were smarter the whole time throughout their history, they probably had kings at some point.
They absolutely would have had kings in their history, and maybe that was part of the point of the screen too, to not let people know about how easy it is to make coordination very hard.
I think it'd be hard to start now and make coordination be like, the first person to stand up and be like, I'm king. There's two people just say, fuck you, and hit them, right?
Oh, it would have to definitely be a long conspiracy.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to get that thing going unless it's already in place.
It might even have to be a conspiracy of the smartest people in the world who have lots of secret knowledge and are implicitly entrusted by everybody with their own back-channel communications just among themselves.
And their super evil plan is to make sure everyone's happy and, copacetic the whole time. Oh no.
Well,
Until they whip out the big guns, you know.
exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But no,
Kelton was asking too many questions. That's why they took his plane down.
right?
Are we supposed to believe that planes still crash on Dothalon? Now that I think about it. Planes
impossible.
almost never crash on Earth.
I know.
And we're all mouth-breathing apes compared to these people, right?
I agree.
So, yeah, that's sus. And he didn't seem all that surprised either. They probably just kill everyone they want to on plane crashes.
Telling you, these keepers, man.
I'm liking them more and more every day.
So not only do they have that part of their history screened off where it was very obvious how easy it is to make coordination hard, but they explicitly train 10-year-olds, train their citizens to resist this kind of thing, because 10-year-olds are trained in this sort of scenario where I guess they get some kind of dictatorship imposed on them, and at some point 10% of them yell now, followed moments later by the other 90% of them spontaneously joining them, and they all spontaneously and independently invent this strategy as soon as prompted by this specific scenario. And I'm like, holy shit, they go through like a Hunger Games scenario when they're kids, and they don't know. They think that they've actually been put in some sort of dystopian government, and they have to actually rebel. This is fucking awesome, and being a kid in Dothalon must be the most epic thing in the world. You literally save the world as part of your training to be a citizen when you're 10 years old.
I mean, that's metal as fuck, and I like that reading, but the way I read it was that they're prompted with this scenario the same way they're prompted with the drowning pond. In that, hey, hypothetically, if this, then they get the feedback. And like they all just say, well, then we just do the shelling point and yell, right?
It felt like, you know how he was confronted by that person that was needed help, and he came over and it feels like when he says 10% of the children yell now, and then the other 90% join in, and they always spontaneously and independently invent this. I think the spontaneously and independently thing and the specific yelling of now, it makes me think this is an actual scenario that they put these kids through.
You're right, because he used numbers like 10%. They really should have just had some, fake, what do you call them? Crisis actors, drowning in ponds, waiting to see if these kids would run and, ruin their shoes, right?
Yes, they should.
You get them coming back from some special party where they got a nice expensive outfit, and then, throw this fake kid into a fake pond and see if they run in there and ruin their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, aha, now you got to give all the clothes off your back, because that's the logical implication of this reasoning. It's fun, and I like his comeback to this. How Dothalon has allegedly solved this problem. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this would work on Earth, even if you taught children about shelling points. Like, if you're in whatever Soviet Russia and 10% of people yell now, like, what the hell are you supposed to do? Grab a brick and throw it at the nearest police officer or military person, or like storm the Capitol. Like, I mean, it's honestly, actually not clear.
You might not even need to grab a brick. Like, if everybody were to rush the guards at once, they couldn't kill them all before they got to them, took their weapons. There aren't that many guards.
No, but that's the thing, is like, it's not clear what you're supposed to do when someone yells now. Like, just because everyone's been living under the boot for for a generation or two, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
So they're like, well, what do I rob the store for food because I'm sick of waiting in line? Do I go kill the whatever local magistrate? Like, however, this would work for a more local situation, like a 9/11 hijacking. There's no way that three people with box cutters could take a plane anymore, right?
Nope.
Even if they could get to the cockpit.
Yeah.
People would wait till, I don't even know if they think a shelling point. Someone would just yell now, right?
Yeah.
Because the plane is small enough where, there's like, 100 and change people on there.
Probably more than that.
You just need enough buy-in to be like, yeah, some of us are going to get cut and maybe a couple of us killed, and then we're going to take the plane back, right?
Yeah.
So this would definitely work for a situation like that. Yeah. And I think even like in lieu of yelling now, you might just need one person to get up and yell and charge them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we all are training and shelling points and planning, then it would sure be nice if they could coordinate, and that first guy wouldn't almost certainly die, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, we find out now that Dothalon has an annual "Oops, it's time to overthrow the government" festival, which is delightful, and I love it. We should have one of those in real life.
I wasn't sure if that was a joke or not. Maybe they have like it struck me like it could be the kind of joke like that, he would make to himself, but why would they have that festival when their government's so awesome and everyone's so happy, right? Just so as like a, if you guys stop being happy, remember this is an option.
Yeah, I think so.
Give them the illusion of power when in fact the lizard people control everything anyway.
That's literally it.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, I love it. I love it even more
if there's
now.
no lizard, and if there's no lizard people, then it's a good reminder that this is a thing we can do and we might need to do.
Arm the public.
Yes. Ooh,
Yeah.
I bet everybody in Deathlon owns guns.
Or nobody has guns. Like, actually nobody.
Like they just don't make guns?
Maybe they don't make guns. Maybe only like the military has them to shoot, invading aliens or something.
Yeah.
But like another stable equilibrium for the gun problem is to have none of them.
I suppose so, yeah.
Like in Japan, your odds of being killed by a gun are basically zero.
Okay.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
unless
I
you're
think you're
involved
right.
in the gang. But I
And
think their
even in
gun
the
homicide
gang-
rate is next to nothing.
It's really surprising when I watch some Japanese media where like Yakuza, hardcore gangsters, they're going after each other with knives and shit. And then somebody pulls out a gun and everyone's like, what the fuck? You're pulling out a gun? Like just it's not done.
Right. Yeah, I thought we were the bad guys. That's hardcore, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I wanted to win. What are you guys doing? Hitting each other with sharp sticks. Come on.
So help me out here, as long as we're talking about hitting each other with sharp sticks. He says, in a pre-metallic equilibrium, almost all fighters have about the same military power. I don't think that's correct at all.
What's it mean pre-metallic? Like before metal was invented?
Before the smelting of
That's what I meant.
metal.
Yeah, before the Iron Age.
Like using sticks and stones and shit.
I guess maybe if you draw a circle around the word fighters, to sub out not all people.
All right, that makes quite a bit more sense then, because I was thinking first of all, half the population just have a retarded advantage over the other half, and I can't believe you started with they all have the same military power. But yeah, you're right. Half the population wouldn't even be considered fighters.
And the other some percent of the population is children, some percentage is elderly,
Very old. Yeah, there's some people that are infirm, ill, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he's saying that,
that
approximately everybody has the same physical might. I think that he's saying that anyone who's capable of picking up a bat can pick up a bat with just about as well as the next guy. And that's probably basically true. I mean, even if you're all fighting with wooden swords, like people who practice at it all the time will be better at it. But still, 4 people rushing him, unless there's some whatever badass samurai,
right?
They'll be able to take him out, right?
Yeah, you're right. Okay, cool. Never mind.
I mean, it was a good catch, though.
No, I guess I just thought I read people instead of fighters. I'm very embarrassed now.
I didn't notice it. I didn't have that idea until I saw the word, until you pulled out the quote. So no, embarrassed. I asked lots of stupid questions. I can't be the only one doing it. So
fine, I'll leave it in. All right, and then she does the Hermione thing where she realizes that she's doing a bad job of being evil, so she's going to have to set more time aside tomorrow to work on that.
What form do you think that time is going to take? Like she's going to wake up half an hour early and just like go slap some maids and
I have no idea, actually.
I'm so not eager to find out.
Me neither. Maybe we won't. Maybe she won't actually have the time to be more evil.
Hopefully she'll be too busy becoming a better person, but we'll see.
Or having kinky sex with Keltham.
Right.
Because she describes kinky stuff, and then there is an empty tag with Keltham that was just made me laugh out loud when we ran into it.
The empty tag is a nice literary device that is only usable in this medium, and it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You can kind of do it like in a cartoon or in a movie or whatever, but like with this, it's just like blink. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
Or I have even more questions.
I think the first time I ran into it was in Final Fantasy II, which I guess technically is Final Fantasy IV if you're a purist, but where the people were talking back and forth to each other, and one of the times, one of the dialogues was just one character having 3 dots in a row, the ellipses.
I've definitely seen that in games, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, cool.
Those are fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's saying, under other circumstances, I'd say surprise me, but what exactly is whipping? What's a candle?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And she's like, oh man, I thought that, they're all taking bets on like how many of my limbs you're going to cut off tonight. Like, if you don't know what a candle is or have never hit anybody, like, I feel like this is going to be a whole, she talks about she's still excited to win the bet because he might still be a sadist or whatever because he likes the idea of hair pulling. I'm not convinced that's sadism.
No, definitely not.
So maybe she can't imagine pulling someone's hair in a loving way that doesn't hurt them too much. And she assumes that if anyone's into it, they're into it to hurt them for hurting's sake.
Well, I mean, even then, like, okay, where is this hair pulling quote? He says, okay, let me check in with what my brain thinks of pulling your hair in a sexual context if you enjoyed that in a sexual way. And yep, somebody just won their bets on me, all right. What, that's not sadism in any way at all. I don't blame Keltham for being confused on this because he's very confused about his sexuality, but like doing something that turns on your partner, it's natural for that to turn you on too, right?
I mean, it is for, not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, but it is for us because we're good with a capital G, right?
Okay.
I mean,
fair enough.
I think you're right, though. If you're evil, like their enjoyment of it is completely orthogonal to your enjoyment. In fact, if you're extra evil, their hating being there would probably be extra fun for you, right?
Yes, exactly. And he's like, what my brain thinks of pulling your hair in a sexual context if you enjoyed that in a sexual way. I maybe there is a special definition of sadism for sex, which is like it counts as sadism if it causes some pain, but the other person still likes it. But that is the most vanilla sadism I've ever heard. Like everyone pulls hair.
Yeah, I don't think that they're speaking the same language here.
Yeah,
which they're almost definitely like they're like. Frankly, all this this talk I thought was going to be kind of super boring, but the enormous cultural gaps. And like the evil subterfuge of her, of me wondering like what the hell she's actually talking about at bottom, and him totally not getting it to the level where he doesn't know it. And like the also like just kind of the spice on this fun is that he doesn't know what a candle is, which is like not only is that like not something Dathalon has, but it's like the idea of doing anything like that to anybody, has never occurred to him, right?
Yeah.
And he the way he talks a big game. Again, we should just place a bet. You want to do $5? I think that he'll say this is his first time having sex.
I mean, I agree with you, so I don't want to lose $5.
Fair enough. So I mean, despite all his big talk, he gives off strong virgin energy. So, maybe everyone in Dathalon uses candles for sex, and he just, he's just never been invited, right?
Right. Yeah, he's never been into a proper cuddle room with all the things people actually use.
Okay, this actually brings another question. This is sidebar, but he uses cuddle and sex interchangeably, but they're different things, and that kind of bugs me.
It kind of bugs me too, yeah.
Okay, because like a cuddle room doesn't get dirty because cuddling isn't, doesn't produce a mess.
I mean, a cuddle room could get dirty if the cuddling led to sex, but
then you go to the sex
by
room.
itself. Yeah, well, maybe you just have sex in the cuddle room because you can't be bothered to go to another room, but like it's not that hard to go to another room. I've done it before.
Yeah, I mean, makes a lot of sense.
Some rooms are better suited all the time, in fact.
Yeah. I leave rooms many times a day. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I imagine a cuddle room being like a big beanbag chair, which would be kind of awkward to have sex on. And it's like, all right, let's have sex like on a piece of furniture that can actually support, our posture, right?
Yeah. Let's have, sex swings hanging from the ceiling and all sorts of stuff.
Right. And a sex swing is not conducive to cuddling.
No, it is not. I was just thinking, when you mentioned this whole incentives that they have, maybe Carissa is trying to convince him that he's a sadist because that would be a good way to like corrupt him or make him evil or something. Like if she's like, oh yeah, you like thinking of me getting turned on, that makes you so sadistic, dude, and somehow like trick him into doing more bad shit.
Like trick him down the path of villainy without like him ever making the connection, and then when he does, like just assuming that he won't backtrack.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun plan. We'll see if it pans out.
All right. Because I'm thinking of the spoilers we got at the very beginning, or not spoilers, but the content warnings that like this includes bad BDSM practices that are designed to get people to damn themselves or something.
Right.
That's what he's doing right now.
That's been on my mind as well.
Yeah.
And so like whatever they're going to be doing it wrong. So
she's going to be like, oh, you were just pulling my hair. That's basically the same as stabbing a girl. Something along those lines. You've already agreed that you're a sadist.
I mean, he's a little socially maladapted maybe to this planet, but I think even he'll recognize the difference between a scream of pleasure and a scream of pain,
I hope so.
I mean, he'd better, and I think Carissa may be counting on him not if this is going to be her plan, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, stab her. When she screams, that means she likes it, right?
Or maybe she like is going to do the wrong scream, like the scream of pain when he pulls her hair, and then like looks back at him like that's the scream that means I like it.
Oh no, that sounds distinctly plausible. Oh man. Anyway,
going to be so confused and sexually fucked up by these people. I guess they are kind of evil.
I mean, maybe kinda, just a little.
Yeah. Interesting point of theology that she points out to him. Cheliax conceives of pain as significantly more than just a damage signal, because he says that's the only thing pain is. I'm like, oh yeah, for them it's literally a holy rite, like meditation or prayer or something. That is very interesting, and I kind of like that world detail there.
Me too. It's also a damage signal, lest she try and shade over that fact.
Well, yeah. It's
when Elias set Iona on fire, it wasn't to better prepare her for hell. It was because he was mad at her and wanted her to hurt, right?
Yeah. I mean, may have also been a sacrament in his religion to set her on fire like that.
That sounds awfully convenient, doesn't it?
That's why you would make your religion have that kind of sacraments if you're evil.
Yeah.
To make it more convenient.
That seems like a totally unrelated thing, right?
Mm.
Almost we're to believe that, like, whatever, they do something gross and, whatever, with knives or something during sex, that they're getting some religious epiphany out of it, right?
I mean, why not? It's their religion. They can make up whatever sacraments they want.
Well, they can say that they're getting an epiphany out of it, but they might also, I think they're just doing it because they like hurting people. And I know that's like not really testable, because they'll just say that like they're doing it for their religion either way, right? But
like, it can be both. There's a lot of things people do for religious rites that are just straight up pleasurable to do.
Stuff can be two things. Good point. All right. I think the crux of their miscommunication is that Dathalan, pain is bad. Like, every instance of pain is damage, and it should be avoided. The less the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Cheliax, it's different. Not only is there the religious connotation, but they don't have the super enlightened world of like, nope, all pain is terrible, which is kind of like what we're aiming for here on Earth. Like in an abstract.
I think
we would draw a line out for stuff, but
I think if we're aiming at that, then we're wrong. I think like chronic suffering is terrible, and there's various forms of suffering that are terrible. But like, I think a blanket all pain is bad statement is just wrong.
I think so too, and I think maybe that's because pain is a pretty loaded word. But like, it's not uncommon in like moral philosophy talks to equate suffering with negative utility, and that's therefore the definition of bad, right?
Right. Yeah.
But suffering isn't just pain; it's more than that. So
yeah.
Anyway, their cultural divide, it continues to be entertaining.
Yeah. Okay. Carissa is having the somewhat upsetting realization that maybe it would be bad for Dathalani people if they went to hell. If they've just completely eradicated the mechanism by which their brain translates pain into something more complex than just suffering. Yeah, that would be really bad. I'm kind of back to thinking that maybe hell isn't as awful as the name implies, because they're using pain for, I guess, something more than just suffering. They're using it as a tool that just maybe justifies the pain in some way. And also, this is another point in the direction of Carissa is just Hermione and Cheliax, because she doesn't want people to just suffer. She thinks that there's a good reason for that suffering.
What makes their cultural divide here really interesting is that even if you were to get halfway through explaining to her and she could think that she understood, she would be wrong. I mean, so you're saying that, maybe hell isn't as bad as the name implies, but it's like, if you squint, all that we're doing to the prisoners at Guantanamo, we're shaping them into different people who want to cooperate, right?
Okay.
And
I see what you're saying.
But the thing is
that's not the case.
But there's
hell.
But there's a kernel of truth to what she's saying, that there's more to pain than just suffering.
Yeah.
And so this is like a lot of like definition style disagreements people get in, right?
Yeah.
And they can say, well, oh yeah, no, of course I get it. Yeah, there's more stuff than that. And then Keltham can come around to realize, you know what, you're right. Things like hair pulling, and she'll be like, yeah, and cutting people's faces off when they talk back to you. And so they can kind of be like halfway towards each other, but still be totally missing each other's points.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be interesting.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this pans out.
I wish it would just pan out quicker. I mean, I get it. Like,
I do too.
I don't want to like, skip to the end, but like, I really want to see this conflict all start exploding.
Yeah, the buildup is a little bit too long, I will say.
We're also reading this at a glacial pace.
That's true.
Not like I want more to read every week, but because we do it weekly.
Yeah, yeah. I normally do not read things this slowly and then take notes about them and then talk about them and then publish them. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they go upstairs and they look at go up onto the tower and they look at the stars.
I just had to point out that it wouldn't be a Yudkowsky story unless the protagonist spent some time chilling and looking at the stars.
That is very true. And that's nice, too. Feels peaceful and cool. And also, good pickup that all the Yudkowsky stories have that.
I mean, I can't remember specifically if that happens in, like, The Girl Who's Ruined by the Internet or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just seems, as long as we're on the point, Yudkowsky would have to travel outside the Bay Area to see stars. Like, you can technically see them, but, like, California is shit for sky viewing, like the urban city, right?
I'm pretty sure he's been outside the Bay Area in his life.
Oh, I know, but it's a drag because, like, he seems to, like, his characters all seem to love doing this, like, on, with regularity. And for him, it's like a day trip, right?
Yeah, not something he has to do often, which is maybe why he fetishizes it so much in the story. Well, not fetishizes it, but you know what I'm saying.
Loves it.
Well, yeah. It features so prominently as a beautiful thing because he gets it so very rarely in his actual life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Before I really interrupted you, you were going to say, like, is it just me or something?
Is it just me, or is it kind of dumb that they don't have the word stars in Dot the Lawn? They just call them all suns. Like, really? You gotta do that?
It's boringly technical. I realize that, like, at the physical level, what we think of as our sun is like a lot of the other stars, but it holds a special place in our hearts, right?
It does.
Because it holds a very, very special place in the history of our planet and the history of us.
Yeah.
And it's okay for it to have a special status.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
although,
good.
I suppose
it wasn't just me.
I suppose if you're used to thinking of things in terms of space travel and stuff, when you think of the other stars as suns, you think of them as that special too, right?
Huh.
It kind of, rather than diminishing our sun, I think it elevates the other stars.
Huh. Actually, I see your point.
I mean, I don't know if this is...
No,
I don't know if I believe this, but I think that sounds plausible.
That's some great poetic license in world building and damned good analysis there, Dan.
Let's assume it was on point. Let's assume it was on purpose, and it wasn't just, Keltham speak for stars.
So we find out that Keltham is probably from farther away than any of those stars because a very good wizard can teleport to those stars, but not to Dathalan. Like, holy shit. That's amazing.
I mean, that's magic, man.
That blew me away, that, like, the power of their magic lets them just teleport to other stars. This is the first time I've been impressed by Dathalan being significantly more powerful, or by Galarian being significantly more powerful than Dathalan in some major way.
Yeah, I mean, it's also disappointing. It means they can bring the shit society with them all across the universe, but... That kind of sucks. Yeah. But I do like, it, because it's kind of a poetic way to put it. I think you're further away than any of those stars. To bring up a Marvel analogy, which I haven't done in a long time, like the wizards can use the sling rings to make circles teleport, right?
I'll have to take your word for it.
Well, Doctor Strange, they make the portals.
Okay.
You've seen...
And they use rings to do that?
Yeah, but the rings aren't the point. The point is that they can make portals to teleport, right?
Yeah.
You've seen some of the movies.
Yes.
Spider-Man Far From No Way Home.
Yeah.
So teleporting is no big deal, but going one universe over, that's a huge deal, right? And so it's kind of just fun to say it's like you're, the furthest thing that we could ever reach, you're still further than that for wherever you came from, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's kind of just fun saying, thinking about it in that context.
It is. I was just legit shocked by how much freaking distance they can traverse so simply.
I guess because I'm just used to seeing teleportation portals that, like, teleporting from here to the fridge is just as easy as teleporting from here to Mars.
Yeah, but from here to a different star?
Why not? It's not like your magic portals only open at the speed of light.
I guess so.
They open at the speed of, I think Harry put it so perfectly that, magic's attitude towards, I think he was talking about the law of conservation, but just physics in general is somewhere between a shrug of indifference and a giant extended middle finger. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. The teleportation is teleportation, man. It goes from here to there, it goes from here to there. Define those however you want. To them, it's unremarkable. Yeah. But I'm with you. It's super cool.
Yeah. So he has this interesting comment that one person becoming powerful enough to go to the stars on their own is a story that you write and only sell to adults. because if you told it to children, you'd be setting them up for disappointment when they learned how economics worked in real life. Since we read and saw a whole lot of science fiction and fantasy when we were kids, does this mean we all got fucked up in childhood?
No, it means they got fucked up childhoods.
What? No, no. We got fucked up in childhood, and that fucked us in adulthood.
Oh, you're saying because like we grew up thinking I can grow up to be a spaceman when in fact we can't.
Yeah, basically. That we were set up for a disappointment. We got to adulthood and we're like, oh, actually, we can't meaningfully affect anything in the real world, unlike these awesome stories. I guess I'll just be an office drone and then die.
Well, that's throwing in the towel way too hard. More like when I turned like 9, I realized I'd never be able to find a magic artifact to let me become a superhero, right? And so I'm not sure what the year was, but at some point in my young childhood, that was an ambition of mine, was to find some magic object that would turn me into a superhero. And so at some point I realized that wasn't possible. That might have been devastating. I don't remember that part, but I'm kind of okay with that.
It seems like his argument is that if we hadn't fallen prey to that crushing defeat of not being able to find the artifact to become a superhero, we might have had instead the ambition to found our own company and make the world significantly better and capture some small part of that value.
Oh, see, I took it the other way, that, you know, the children didn't read those because they'd get disappointed, and that's a form of suffering. Not that like it would curb their ambition to do something cool later. Yeah,
because you crush their ambition like right away with impossible things that were so cool, and instead, like if they have the ambition to possibly do real things, that doesn't get crushed out of them.
Yeah, that could be. I took it to mean like, you know, that the children there are so sheltered that they wouldn't endure the suffering of learning that you can't be Superman.
Oh, no, I took it the other way, that they would end up like us and not be ambitious in the real world.
I wonder, I mean...
Because I think the average human on Earth is far less ambitious than they could be and should be.
Counterpoint, though, I think that was also true before superhero fiction was popular.
That's a good point, but counterpoint, superhero fiction goes back to at least the ancient god myths.
Well, what's the... I was trying to think of another word for touche, but yes, well put. I concede. I think you're right that, you know, your heroes back then are, you know, Hercules and Gilgamesh, and, you know, they're Titan fighting badasses, and you're a dirt scrubbing pleb.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think people try to grow up to be Hercules, but maybe that was never the point of Hercules. I mean, just because it wasn't the point doesn't mean that kids might have missed the point. Yeah, no, that's interesting. That said, I think we did okay.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trade my childhood for something else, because I wouldn't want to, like, you know, persist into adulthood still trying to become Spider-Man.
No, you would persist into adulthood trying to become, I don't know, Elon Musk, or maybe a slightly less ambitious founder, but something that you could reach.
Okay, we can actually test this weekly, because I was going to mention Elon Musk, because like that'd be the thing, right? We aim to do more Elon Musk and less Batman, right? Because Elon actually has like a history of how he earned his money, rather than just like, how he earned most of it. Rather than just like whatever, being angry because his parents got murdered in an alleyway.
Right.
So I bet we can find out in interviews if people like, let's say, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, whatever, grab half a dozen or a dozen very, very powerful and successful people and see if they've ever said like, oh yeah, I loved superhero stuff as a kid.
Oh, I'm sure they were exposed to that stuff just as much as any of us, but overall, the population level, it demoralizes and discourages a lot more people than it has to.
Maybe.
Is, I believe, the argument Eliezer's making here, and I think maybe.
But if they all said, "Oh yeah," or if like a common theme was like, "Oh yeah, I saw them. I didn't like them because that seemed unreachable," right?
Oh,
then that would be evidence that yes, you know, the fact that many of us as kids did reach for this means that we might have been misled.
I mean, Musk is reaching for putting humans on Mars. I think that's pretty damned unreachable, but I guess not physically unreachable. Like that is some serious ambition there.
Yeah, we put stuff on Mars. It's not as impossible as it was 100 years ago.
That's true.
It's technically possible now. Probably.
Yeah.
Technically possible in the not too distant future.
Oh, to put humans there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, shall we continue to our future?
Yes.
All right. Keltham is trying to flirt with Carissa. Seems to be doing an okay job at any rate. And he Carissa puts her hand on his arm, and so he leans gently in that direction, which is hopefully a signal that it's fine, meaning it's fine for her to put her hand on her arm. I this makes me feel less good about Dathalon, because the fact that he's so fucked up psychologically that he's hoping it's a good sign that it's fine to touch him by leaning into her, that they have not been taught very much about like sex ed or psych ed or something. Like, he shouldn't have to be guessing. He should just know that, like, if someone touches your arm, you lean forward, you lean into them to show them, yeah, I like this. This is nice.
Yeah. I wonder, like, part of it might be the cultural divide that he's wondering about. Maybe that was totally fine. That's, you know, maybe he leaned into it because that's what people do on Dathalon, because that's what makes sense. But is leaning towards them an aggressive gesture, like, you know, smiling with your teeth at a gorilla?
Right. Okay.
But
yeah, that makes sense.
It's also, you know, because you said, I think I remember being this fucked up psychologically. I remember being this confused psychologically, but like also like, wasn't there some vague thrill when you were like a teenager of like, you know, oh man, we went to the movies and she's touching my arm. Does that mean she likes me, or she even knows that she's touching my arm? You know, that was kind of like a fun part of growing up.
I found it just to be very, very anxiety inducing. And once I learned that, yeah, it does just mean she likes me and I should lean into it, life got much better. Because before it was just terrifying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm forgetting the anxiety. And I was a very, very anxious kid. So I think you're probably right. Like the whole thing, she had a funny line about like how, you know, she'll find like excuses to like, you know, brush up against him. It was something like, I bet I can find some, or she bet she can find some if she believes in herself. It just seemed like it was just funny phrasing. That seemed actually pretty Hermione of her to say. But like the whole thing of them acting like 12-year-olds and wondering how to accidentally brush against each other is like delightfully subverted by her not trying to not be a sociopath and him trying not to be too nerdy for his own good.
Yeah.
So there's like this undertone of like kind of enormous tension that isn't about like, oh, are they going to hook up? Because actually that tension's gone, right?
Right.
And it kind of delightfully so. That's not the point, right? The point is how badly they're going to misread each other this entire time.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Okay. He talks about how basically he shouldn't exist on Galarian. His brain was destroyed, and yet somehow he continues to live here. That implies that there is an infinite range of things that can happen, that no matter what he is experiencing, he should always anticipate that he will continue to experience things, because somehow, some way, across all the multiverses, there will be some loophole where a tiny fraction of him continues to exist. Like, his plane goes down, his body is destroyed, and yet somehow his atoms rearranged on Galarian through this freak occurrence. And so now he's thinking, you know what?
Maybe his turtle's all the way down.
Yes, exactly. This just goes on forever for everybody, literally. But for me specifically is what I'm worried about. Do I want to be stuck in one of these afterlives, or do I want to just like go straight for the neutral evil hell where they consume my soul and I'm erased from existence, except not really, because I continue somewhere else? And I thought that was really a cool thing that occurred to him while this he must have been thinking about this for a while. Like, it couldn't have just occurred to him now, and we just heard about it. I enjoyed that, and the first time I ran into this was in Dust Theory, which was what they called it in Permutation City, Greg Egan's book, where the same kind of thing was done, that as long as you have one possible way a observation can continue, it does, basically.
Nice. I kind of forgot this whole digression that they had, and my first exposure to this was me kind of like half-assedly putting together what I learned later was called quantum immortality. And this sounds like that, but on steroids.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you ever get the chance to read Permutation City, do it. I don't want to say how this is used, but man, it's cool. And I do consider it a bit of a horror novel. I'm not sure how many people do, but to me it is absolutely, definitely existential horror. So I guess go in with that warning.
Cool.
Like, there's not going to be people tortured or monsters or anything, but if you don't feel absolute dread reading this, then I don't understand you.
I've felt some dread reading stuff before, but I've never read what I think was marketed as a horror book before. I know this wasn't marketed that way. I need to read a horror book at some point. Keltham says, yeah, I haven't really been thinking about it because I reflexively decided that it was a keeper sort of question, but I had a thing happen to me that was supposed to obliterate my own consciousness, and here I am. Like, I wonder if this is a failure of Dathalan or if Eliezer would actually want everything that's possibly a little scary to be kept out of the public's minds. I sort of doubt the second.
If the keepers have a whole area of knowledge that everybody knows are keeper sorts of questions that they shouldn't look into, might make it really easy to control society.
Yeah, the keepers as sinister overlords, or possibly benevolent overlords, you know?
It's true. I should stop hammering that one because I've hammered it enough for one episode. But
no. But this actually is more evidence in favor of the keepers as dictators. But it makes me wonder because Keltham seems totally fine with like, oh no, that's kind of a scary thing. I shouldn't be thinking that. I should go talk to a keeper instead. And Dathalanians are supposed to be baseline Yudkowskis, and my vibe is not that Yudkowsky. My vibe is that Yudkowsky would not be cool with that. Right?
I agree. Yeah.
So
unless convinced very, very well somehow,
like through his entire childhood education or something, in which case I think he could argue very passionately for it, right?
Well, I think he has argued that there are some info hazards that he would rather not know,
but like
that he would explicitly turn away from.
Is thinking about hair pulling during sex an info hazard?
No.
So I think I called them the gatekeepers on accident. That the keepers have drawn the lines pretty far from like what's actually unsafe to think about to what's just actually inconvenient to think about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They may be abusing their power here,
or just like doing what they need to do to keep things in line. But they're definitely not just guarding the scary secrets, I think.
Right. All right. People being visibly emotional are immature, according to Krissa, or not fully in control of themselves, or trying to make a demand via the emotional expressiveness. I really like that point. I agree with her that people being visibly emotional are, not always. Lots of times it's good to be visibly emotional, but it's also good to keep in mind that sometimes people visibly emotional are, in fact, being immature or not in control of themselves, or are literally trying to blackmail you, trying to make an emotional demand via their emotional expressiveness. And much like tipping, don't play that game.
See, this is a tighter tightrope to walk, though. I got the boys don't cry talk growing up. I imagine a lot of people did. And like, I think that's actually like kind of damaging. Not like, man, damaged, childhood traumatizing, man. But mine wasn't that bad. My childhood was fine, but I did get that conversation more than once. And like, I don't know. I like being, I don't always like to express myself emotionally, but I like that I'm more emotional than I was when I was a kid, or at least when I was a teenager.
I agree.
I'm more emotionally expressive on purpose, and like more comfortably emotionally expressive.
Yes, I think, like you say, there's a balance.
Yeah, I think maybe what she's saying, or she's saying something evil because she doesn't understand that people can have feelings for good reasons. But the good Steelman version of what she's saying is that like, if you actually can't control yourself, that's an immaturity marker. Like, if you're surprised and you're like, egads, and you actually can't keep it under wraps, then you're going to be a shit leader because you're immature, right?
Right. I think if you can't control some emotions like anger, you're just going to be a bad person, possibly a dangerous person to be around.
Totally. I guess what I'm getting at is I like being able to cry at movies and TV shows, kind of like,
totally,
more often than many people maybe. But I'm super fine with that.
Totes.
But
see, I was thinking more along the lines of like, are you really harmed by somebody calling their hard drives a master drive and a slave drive? Because I don't think you are.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think about this once in a while because I any fiction where like the protagonist is trapped with morons who like scream and wave their arms in a panic when monsters are attacking rather than grab a bat and hit the monsters. That's like actually the scary part of those things for me, of those pieces of fiction. It's not like being trapped in the hellscape, like that would suck, but being trapped there with a bunch of fucking idiots who just make it more dangerous for me is actually what makes it like more emotionally engaging for me.
Oh, interesting.
That the quick example I'm thinking of is I remember the movie The Mist.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I mean, it was fine, but the people, it was good because I think it did what it was going for, but it made me feel a feeling I hate, which is like, God damn it, I'm so impatient with this. I can't believe, like, is everyone like in that store just being a bunch of bloody morons?
Yeah.
And it's like, can't you guys all like just cooperate for one goddamn minute? And no. And so like that to me is the horror part, not the monsters banging on the door, right?
Right.
We can handle them if you guys can stop being fucking stupid in here, but you can't, and now we're all going to die.
Yes.
So yes, that's where I think it's makes sense to rein in your emotions just for long enough to, again, grab something sharp and hit the monsters to the pointy end of it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Keltham. I love this. We don't even have to comment on this line. I just loved it, so I pulled it out real quick. Keltham hates this language, and he'd ask how anybody ever thinks in it, but the answer, of course, is that they don't.
I pulled out the same
Mad
one.
shade being thrown on English.
I pulled out the same one, so I agree. Very fun.
Awesome.
Just very like that impatient, Harry James Potter Evans Vera style of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They can't think in this language. It's too fucking hard. No wonder they're all so dumb.
It was delightful. I wish we got more like that.
Yeah, we get some comedy beats, but not a lot
We
in this,
do.
This section.
I really like comedy beats, and yeah, I could use a few more, but that's just me. Carissa thinks, what if she wants to be lawful neutral because Keltham is? Well, then she'll die and go to hell and not get to do anything cool. So she should pick a less stupid want that isn't based on a crush on a teenager. But then she says it doesn't feel like it's because of the crush on the teenager. It feels like the other way around. Meaning that the reason that she is crushing on him is because he's so fucking cool. He's lawful neutral, and that is what she wants to be. And I gotta say, Kelsey just keeps writing really hot sections like this, and it's super enjoyable, and I like it.
Nice. I think when you meant that it's the other way, it's that she's inclined that way already. That's why she likes him.
I was thinking it's that, like, her excuse is like, oh, I just feel this way about being lawful neutral because I have a crush on him, when in fact it's that she feels that lawful neutral is awesome and he embodies it, and that is why she has a crush on him, rather than she has a crush on him, which is why she likes lawful neutral.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. That she sees something admirable and she sees him embodying it, and she wants him because of that. And that's fucking hot. Good writing.
Yeah, I liked, again, just the quick introspection that she's having too, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't stop at the like, well, that's dumb. It's just a crush. And it's like, well, hold on, maybe it's not. And of course, maybe it is, right? But it's probably not, actually.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
she is not a child. She knows what she wants.
I like Keltham's got this thing here, and I had to pull this out because Dothalan is looking kind of less appealing this chapter than any other previous reading. He says, "Well, thanks for taking all the uncertainty and plot tension out of our flirting, then, because they're already pre-committed to basically banging. They're already basically pre-committed to banging at the end of the night."
Yeah.
Where I come from, there's enough distinct books on romantic theory to fill this house's library 10 times over, and most of them would say that just giving away the ending makes it be less fun. Right now, my experiences seem to falsify that. I don't think that cuddling you on a roof and looking up the stars is even slightly less fun if I know that I can't fail. And yeah, if Dothalan was teaching the reverse, then they're just flat wrong, right? Like, knowing that, we're going to go home and have sex afterwards can make the date more fun, not less, because then you're not anxious about, like, misreading signals or whatever, because the signals are all pointing towards, sex.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, you're right. There's some. I think I'm putting words in your mouth, but there's some fun in the kind of anxiety of like reading things, right?
You absolutely knew exactly what I was thinking, probably because you know me and you heard the way I said, "Oh, interesting." Like I had just come to realization. I do often find the pursuit to be very fun, and part of that is like not knowing.
And the pursuit, I think, can be fun, but to say that like it takes all the fun out. It takes out the plot tension for sure. But it's like, I don't know, knowing that you're gonna have dessert at the end of the meal doesn't make like the food taste any less good.
Yeah, but you're not pursuing the dessert. There's no game, but there's no
dance. There's no chase to the dessert. You can just go straight to dessert if you wanted to. That's a good point.
Right.
That's a bad analogy, but my point stands that I think that taking that out of it changes the game, but it doesn't ruin it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's two slightly different games, and they have similar paths, but and they're both enjoyable, even if they're not quite the same game.
Yeah, but you're right. They're very distinctly different.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I can't remember the context where most of the time as I pull out these quotes, and I can't remember the context because the context doesn't actually matter. So I've got Carissa here saying, maybe it's okay to understand the Dothalan way of thinking and separately try to understand the Asmodean one and then integrate them. If she can't understand the Dothalan, then she won't be able to do her job. And I predict that if she understands Dothalan, she won't be able to go to hell the way that she wants to.
Oh, shit.
Like, I don't think that, Voldemort didn't understand good people.
Yeah.
And if he did, he would have ceased to be fully evil.
Oh, damn, dude. That's a hell of a prediction. That's a good one.
Well, we'll see. In fact, I think that actually her soul. Wait, she didn't sell it to Asmodeus, did she?
She did not.
So she could still go to the wrong hell.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that yeah, if she can fully like if her mental model of Keltham stops being like this murderous monster, uh,
Yeah.
and she starts understanding like true love and friendship, then yeah, she's not going to hell, right?
Aw, it's going to be the most heartwarming story.
Hopefully. I had a lot of fun with Keltham trying. They're trying to dissect. He's like, I don't think heretical translated there. It sounded like false, but only actually some of it's a different property of a proposition can have than falsity, but still a bad one. Maybe information with a negative value flavored.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to explain the idea of wrongthink to somebody from Dathalon, he's exactly as confused as you would think.
Yeah.
And they have some back and forth that I didn't grab the rest of, but it was just kind of fun to see him be totally bewildered at that.
Yeah.
And
that was delightful to watch. I really like the heresy thing as well, and I can't wait for him to figure it out and see how he reacts to that.
Right. Like she tries to like explain of like, well, there are some truths, but you know, if you think them in the wrong order, you get, you know, you take wrong steps in in other lines of thinking, you know, rather than like, and those things can still be technically true. And he's like, okay, like a particular flavor of invalidity then.
Yeah,
and so he says that, but then he's like, but heresy didn't really sound like that.
Yeah, he's like, it's false, but not like factually false. And we're like, yeah, it's socially false. You can't say it,
right?
Even though it's true,
and you can't think it, even though it's true.
That double good point. Yeah,
yeah. What's fun is I think the translation spell, like, it conveyed the vibe, even if it couldn't successfully convey the meaning.
Yes,
because he's like, the word heresy doesn't sound like that, but okay, if you say so.
Yeah.
And I just love how dude he is with stuff. Like, so she's going to go run off and talk to a priest because she's having a conflict of something. I actually can't remember what her whole deal was, but I'm sure they'll remind us next week. But he just says, I'd offer to stay up here for a set time, but I don't have my small wearable time-telling device. Maybe I'll just look up and think for a bit, then head on down if I notice myself not wanting to be on the roof.
I think it's because Galarian doesn't have a word for watch.
Well, he also doesn't have a watch.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh, but he can't say it to her. Right. Yeah, they definitely don't have them, right?
Yeah. No, so I was just remembering back to your previous point where you said he never says the word watch. He always says device or something.
Oh, yeah, because he can't just say watch because they'd be like, what do you mean? You can watch things all the time. No, you watch a watch to know what time it is? Yeah, that is a weird name for it, isn't it? But yeah, he has to go for the multi-syllable version.
Yeah.
But
sorry, what was the dude thing he's doing here?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he's done this before, like with maybe like when he decided to take a nap and other times, but just he says something like, I'm gonna look up a thing for a bit, then head on down if I notice myself not wanting to be on the roof.
Yeah.
Like that's the chillest fucking way to express that of, you know, he's like, if I get bored up here, that's not what he's saying though.
Right.
He's like, if I notice that I don't want to be up here anymore, I'm gonna not be up here anymore. Like,
oh, that's a really good catch.
It's a subtle difference, I think, but I think it speaks a lot to like the kind of life that Dathalanians have, or Dathalani, is that how you pluralize it? Like, you're just doing what you want to all the time.
It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it. I'm going to try to integrate some of that into my thinking. I'll maybe have mixed success with it, but just the idea of like, if I notice myself not wanting to be up here anymore, I'm going to change what I'm doing. Yeah, I think like deliberately phrasing it that way can actually be really valuable, but I'll have to give that some more thought.
Mm-hmm. I think it very much can be, yeah. And it does give him a very chill vibe that like, sure, maybe he's got some virgin energy. That's because he's a virgin, but he's pretty chill about it. Yeah,
and no, I'm not dissing virgin energy at all. It's more just like how he's speaking so authoritatively on sex and harems and stuff, when I'm pretty sure he's going to be, you know, when he's not the expert he's boasting to, like that he's pretending to be. I'm only giving him a hard time for that, not for not having sex. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. And speaking of how cool and chill he is, he doesn't have any regrets about this night. He says he's still going to have sex with Carissa later, and this way he also got to act cool and all wise in front of her. And I mean, like, hell yeah, there's no sex scarcity. You don't have to have sex every night. You go, you do the thing, you hang out with the person, and if there's sex, that's cool, and if not, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah.
I can't remember, like, so they pre-committed. They're like, yeah, we're having sex at the end of the night, right? And they're basically like, yeah. And I wonder if she comes back from her talk with the priest and she's not in the mood anymore, is he going to see that as like a violation of contract? I'm sure he'll be more understanding than that. But like,
Right.
We had an agreement. We're living in a society. Does our word mean nothing?
Yeah.
But as is the theme with the last few chapters here, or last few readings, we get to end on my new favorite character, Broom, who is just eavesdropping everywhere all the time. He's dropping eaves left and right. And he's been up here watching this whole thing, and he says, it was very interesting and very confusing conversation, and Broom was not quite sure what to make of it. He hesitates between continuing to watch Keltham or trying to overhear the woman's conversation with the Asmodean cleric. And I think he sticks around to watch Keltham, which seems like a lot less interesting than listening to a conversation, because what is he going to learn from watching this guy sit and think? But
that's a good point. And he doesn't have any mind readiness.
Not that we're aware of. So maybe he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's got all the sharpest tools in the toy box now. So,
yeah, and maybe the conversation with the cleric may be more interesting, but you kind of know more or less how it's going to go. Whereas if you sit here and watch Keltham, probably going to be bored. Huge chance of nothing happening, but it's a much higher variance sort of event where maybe some crazy absolute shit's going to happen that you'll be around here to watch because it's fucking Keltham and crazy shit happens around him sometimes.
True. And maybe Dothalanis have this, weird societal habit of like verbalizing their thought streams out loud when they're alone, and he gets to eavesdrop. So
ooh, that would be cool.
That'd be convenient for him. I also love how his little, I can't remember what the things are. It's like the name of the character, this little tag, and then who the author. Whatever his little tag is, or whatever it's called, it's stuck cleaning it up.
Yes.
And I love it because it works both for his old life and his new one.
Yep. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, man. I was thinking that this was going to be fast because we both forgot everything, but I think that actually helped put some more meat into this episode. So people get a huge MP3 after a week-long hiatus.
Yeah. And yeah, also we had a whole lot of listener feedback at the top, and particularly I guess because I got a bit exercised about one specific topic, so I apologize about that.
Never. I'm into it.
All right.
Well, so I've got our stop phrase for next time.
Oh, nice.
All right. So everyone should be reading on the link that we have in the show notes. If you're not, you're doing it wrong. I'm just prepared to say flat out. But if you're reading it on Glowfic, on a Glowfic site and not Keiko Lukium's, I know I'm saying that wrong, I suck, on his GitHub, the stop phrase is, she doesn't want to give him time to dwell on it, so she kisses him.
Nice. So I guess they're going to get all kissy, but not till the very end. So probably 2 more episodes till we get to see all the kissing. What?
I'm curious what it's going to be like. I guess I'm not thinking that reading a sex scene is going to be all that exciting to talk about or read, really. I mean,
might be a short episode then.
But I mean, it might be a short episode, but the fact is that we got a content warning about it. So on the one hand, like I said, I'm too Ravenclaw to not open the box, but I'm also worried what I'm going to find in the box. Like, if this is bad enough that they put a heads up on it, is it going to be really, really bad? Or maybe they just want to say, like, look, we know this isn't good BDSM, don't at me, right?
Right. Well, and also, this may be a slow descent into depravity. It may just be hair pulling the first time,
Oh, man. Well, good. You gotta ease into it.
That's right.
Well, all right, man. This was fun.
This was great. Thank you for joining me. Sorry it went so damn long, but it was fun.
Hey, they're always a good time.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks for listening, and see you guys next week.
All right. Oh, also support us on Patreon. Peace out. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.